Welcome back to Relative Roads. It's me, Mike. If you're here because I met you somewhere out there in the world and I told you I had a podcast and you're finally here to check it out, thanks, man. Or woman. Thank you for being here and thanks for just connecting with me. It was amazing. This episode is with a friend of mine that I met about 10 years ago. We ran with the same circles in Sacramento, and I've enjoyed his personality digitally. And up until now, I haven't really had a reason to get together, and this podcast was perfect for that. So we got to talk about his art and his photography, how he unlocks the potential with his subjects through a conversation about vulnerability, and just a beautiful process. And we connected in, just the expression of art and how it feels and who we know, and how being a dad, just being in love with life. And it was just a great connection for you to peek into. So I hope you enjoy it. Again, the audio is amateur, I know that, but the content is there, I promise. You should definitely check out Avery Matthew's work on Instagram at Unique. That's the letter U, and again, U-N-E-E-K. Unique. This experience will be unique at Instagram, and definitely take a look at this man's eye. I'm telling you, he sees the human spirit in such a beautiful way, and you deserve to hear beautiful things. So please let me introduce you to a beautiful person, Avery Matthew.
I'm just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same. And now it's time for another episode of Relative Road.
So, I had a friend named James.
Okay.
And he was sort of the quiet type, but secretly like a party animal.
Mm-hmm.
And he invited me to go get some truffles in Bury St. Edmunds.
Okay.
Which is just a small town close to where I was living by the Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular store where we bought them was legal. There was a loophole in the system that they were able to sell these psychedelic mushrooms.
In England?
In England.
Wow.
Yeah, in Bury St. Edmunds, England. It's a small little town. It was gorgeous. Anyway, so we go and buy these truffles, and we didn't really have plans beyond that. And we thought, well, we'll just take them and go hang out at Alex's house. And Alex was just one of James's childhood friends. Alex, I'm pretty sure, had ADHD. And the things he was doing kind of like bugged me out. But essentially, we went over to Alex's house, we took the truffles, and we went into the backyard to hang out in his caravan.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex is a musician, so he has a guitar. He has a TV out there and a game system. Mm-hmm. And when we went out there, it was cool. We're all chilling in the caravan, just hanging out, and Alex starts flipping the channels. He's not satisfied. He starts playing video games. He's not satisfied. And then he starts playing a song on his guitar, and he juggles through these three choices so much so that I'm just overwhelmed. And I'm like, I gotta go, James. And I left the caravan, and I went outside, and I laid in the grass. Mm-hmm. And as always, it was a cloudy day in England, and I'm staring up at the sky. And I just recently heard that if you're on mushrooms, go out and look at the clouds.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I was doing, just inadvertently. I was just there laying in the grass, looking at all the samurai warriors form. I'm like, I was seeing this shit vividly. I'm like,
wow.
Holy shit, enjoying this process. And so good so far. And then James comes out, and he's like a little annoyed. He's like, why'd you leave me in there, mate? Why'd you leave me in there? And I'm like, James, I'm sorry, man. It was just too much. I had to go. And he's like, yeah, let's do something else. So we decide, let's go sit in the car. We go outside in the car in the front of Alex's house. We both ditched Alex. And then eventually, me and James are in the car, and we're just being stupid, laughing our fucking asses off. And I'm trying to hang my hat on the rearview mirror, and it's not working. And we're dying. And then we see Alex appear in the kitchen window. The curtains are open, and Alex is standing there with his hands on his hips trying to figure out where we went, what we're doing, and what to do next. And then he goes and makes himself a cup of tea. And we're watching him in the kitchen just being Alex.
Right.
And he's drinking this tea. And somewhere in that process, we started interpreting Alex's world to be a vendetta against ours.
Oh.
And at some point, I started feeling like Alex is conspiring to kill us.
So thus this marks the spiraling,
The turn of events. Yes.
Yeah, that's you really have to be careful about who you surround yourself with when partaking in that, because it's I looked at it as being the ultimate awareness, and there are too many things that are happening in an environment that can shift your state of mind to a path you don't want it to go.
Yeah.
And it, the more people involved in your surroundings, the better chance that you might actually go down that bad road. So you have to be definitely in a good place, for one. Yeah. They recommend obviously being out in nature, which is a good thing, because those are less you're less likely to have a bad experience when you're in nature. You absorb your surroundings. And I'm curious, like, when you were laying down in the grass, did you feel like you were a part of the earth?
That didn't happen yet.
That didn't happen yet?
The story's not done.
Oh, okay. Please proceed.
I'll take it all the way to the end.
Okay.
So we're watching Alex. We're speaking about this perspective. Like, I think we pissed him off.
Uh-oh.
I think he's mad. And we just kept feeding that fear. And eventually I was like, yeah, I think it's time to go, James. And he's like, yeah, I agree. Let's go to my house. And it's just down the road. And this is Lakenheath, England. It's this small, tiny little town right outside the Air Force Base. And so we scoot on down to James's house. I knew his parents. I knew his family. They loved me. I'm this loud, fat American guy that comes around from time to time. And they adore me. So no fear there.
Right.
We go to James's house. We park in front of his house. And for some reason, we keep feeding into this idea that Alex is out to get us. And I start saying, is he on his way? And I'm asking questions thinking that Alex is like getting in his car, coming out to like do something to us. And so eventually, like, we tire this out, and James is like, I'm going inside, I'm going to go to bed. Oh. I'm like, okay, cool. And I wasn't aware of how tripped out I was.
Right.
Because I wasn't having visuals. I wasn't feeling the physical aspect of this psychedelic. And at least I didn't think I was. And I took off, and I started driving. It's fine for the first quarter mile. And then as I get into the country part of the road, which I'm coming out of the town, and then now there's more bushes and trees along the side of the road, those started waving in and out of the road. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I look down to see the bottom half of my body and the bottom half of the car, like, feet below me.
Right.
And I try to put the car in some other gear other than drive, and I see sparks. And it's all... And I have to go through, in less than a mile, I have to go through a barricade, a gate with a shack, and 2 law enforcement cops standing there checking IDs.
No.
This is after 9/11, so they were searching cars as well, periodically.
No.
So there's a buildup, just knowing that that's what's ahead. I can't find my wallet. I'm looking around. I'm trying to focus on driving. I'm already on the wrong side of the road. So the challenge is great. And there's a little store, a little cigarette shop outside, convenience store right outside the base. And it's by a roundabout. So I go almost all the way around the roundabout, pull in there in the parking lot. Nobody's there. It's closed. I get out of my car. The gate is literally less than 100 yards away. And I'm walking around the car. My 3D world is morphed, so I can't gauge you know, the edges of things.
Right.
And the
No,
depth.
absolutely.
My depth perception is all fucked up. And I'm looking at the car and it looks like it's slanted or it's on some sort of axis. I don't know. I'm tripping out. I'm looking for blood. At this point, I think I might have run somebody over because I'm tripping so hard.
Right.
And then the story of Alex is still here, so I'm like, did I run over Alex? I'm tripping. But I got to pull myself together to get through the front gate of this base operation.
Right.
Because my house is on the other side of the fence. So I go to the gate. I don't know how I got away with it. The cops were talking, having their own conversation. I just handed my ID. He takes a look and he hands it back and says, "You're good." I drive through. I made it. But I'm still worried I killed Alex. So
Oh my God.
I get up into my driveway. I park the car. I'm like, this isn't the scene from Wolf on Wall Street. It's similar, but I didn't damage the car.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I get upstairs. My room is here. My parents' room is here. I'm knocking on my mom's door. I'm like, Mom, can you help me real quick? And she's like, huh? They're sleeping. It's like 3 or 4 in the morning. And my stepdad comes out eventually, and he's trying to wake up, and he's doing this, like trying to get his eyes adjusted. But all I see are his fucking eyelids flapping.
Oh my God.
Like this.
Oh,
and I'm just like trying to shake it off. I'm like, would you mind coming to the car with me real quick? And he says, why? Could you just work with me?
Right.
And so he comes downstairs, we go outside, and I'm like, is there anything wrong with the car? And he's like, no. And his eyes are still doing this thing, and I'm like, well, earlier today, I went and got these mushrooms, but they're legal. There's a loophole. So me and James went to Alex's house, and I'm just rambling, and he's just staring at me, and I stop myself, and I'm like, it's really late, isn't it? And he's like,
yeah.
And I'm like, could you do me a favor? Could you just escort me to my bedroom, shut the light off when I get in the bed, and turn my fan on? And he's like... He's bewildered by this event.
Right.
But he does it anyway. He walks me up to my room. I get in the bed. He turns off the lights. The walls start bouncing.
No.
I sink into the bed, and like the top of the bed is like feet away from my... I don't know how to put that into words, but I'm at least comfortable. The temperature's good. The sound of the fan is comforting. And I think to myself, I'll just lay here and sleep it off.
Right.
And I did just that. And that was the first weird experience with
Wow.
mushrooms.
That is quite the experience, sir. Like, oh my goodness, there are so many different things, like, through your explanation I'm witnessing happening. I'm picturing it. And do you think your stepdad did he know, obviously from you telling him that you were on mushrooms, but did he seem like he knew what he needed to do in order to get you in?
Well, there's a profound separation between his world and mine in that moment, because he's not someone who's messed with psychedelics, drugs, or otherwise. So this experience, my behavior, my perspective, all those things are alien to him.
Gotcha.
So there's no real connection. The only connection is that he is an able body who can help me maneuver from one space to another and keep me safe relatively.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember, I don't want to misgender this person, but Terry Brindisi, right?
Yeah.
She was my sort of shamanic guide on the first time I'm trying it.
Okay.
And we went to the city, which was a bad idea.
Yeah, I bet.
Too much stimulus. We went back to my home city of
Wow,
Berkeley.
that's intense.
And I'm like, okay, I've done other things before. This shouldn't be that bad. I had no idea. And I think we split what they would deem an eighth, I guess, between the two of us. We took it at 12:45 p.m. By like maybe 1:30, it started to kick in. And where we were was just not.
Where were you?
We were on the busy strip of Telegraph where Cal Berkeley University is. I don't know if you've ever been down that way.
Yes.
But it's just flooded with students and people. And so Terry, she knows. They know. And so Terry's trying to prepare for what's about to happen. So we go into Daiso, Japan, and pick up some food and drinks and things to kind of occupy our senses a little bit before this kicks in. As soon as we get out of the store, I look down at the concrete and I start seeing colors I've never seen before. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that color existed, but I like it. It's beautiful. Terry shortly follows out of the store, and her face is a complete tangerine orange, and it's wavy. And I'm like, oh, okay, I think it's starting to take effect. And she's laughing. She's got this big smile on the face. And I'm like, okay, is it happening? Terry's like, yes, it is definitely kicking in. Yeah. Everything is fine. And I'm like, Terry, I want off this roller coaster. They're telling me, they're like, hey, you just got to go along for the ride. Just pace yourself and follow me. Let's go for a walk. And our idea originally was to jump down on the BART and get into San Francisco from Berkeley. Oh my God. And that was a terrible idea. Walking down the steps into this dark into this dark corridor, or this dark pathway, it felt like I was descending down in hell. I was like, wow, Terry, this is a bad idea. Yeah. I looked at my credit card. I was going to pay for my ticket. The number started to wave a little bit, and I'm like, okay, it is definitely, physically, it's starting to feel uncomfortable. Sure. And so Terry knew exactly what to do. And was like, okay, let me grab you. We're going back up to the light. The light is good. And she's patting me and telling me everything's going to be okay. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to freak out here. And we ended up walking back out onto the streets of Berkeley. And I remember hearing the stop signs, the crosswalks sounds. Right. It sounded so reverbed and so echoey. And I remember at the moment, I was like, Terry, I know I brought us to the city, but at this point, we could fucking be in Japan for all I know. I have no clue where we're at. And they're like, okay, let's just walk. Don't worry. It's fine. As we walked, the scenery started to become a little bit more familiar. And we made it to the Berkeley campus and laid about the giant eucalyptus trees and the grass. Oh, beautiful. And I've never seen something that as beautiful as that. Is just being in the moment with an individual who I hadn't really spent that much time with, but we just sort of synced on this level of understanding. And it was perfect because Terry knew that they could ask me anything at that point, and I was vulnerable. Yeah. And they would throw these little tidbit questions. They would ask me, why is it that you do what you do? Why is that so important to you? What are you thinking about at this moment? Are you thinking about your son? Wow. All of this stuff. It was just this like really beautiful moment of realization and awareness. It was, Mike, I was so aware that it was too fucking much. Yeah. And those thoughts tended to take me in a way of being a little bit depressed in a sense. Sure. And then it was a wave of emotion, and I thought, I was like, well, all these different vices, all these things that we see around us, if we made all this shit up and it's unnecessary, then what's the point of really living in general? Sure. In these creature comforts when things could be so simple. Sure. And I just started having all these weird realizations and stuff, and it was so beautiful. There's one thing I do remember from the experience of being on mushrooms, and this was kind of sad, but also an awakening moment for me was they asked me, they challenged me, and it was like, you see all these people here? Try to interrupt them. Try to interrupt their path in life. Just say anything. Yeah. Just say, hey, ask for directions or ask a person how they're doing. Yeah. Try to do it to as many people as you possibly can. I did it to about like 3 or 4 people being completely consumed by this drug, by this psilocybin mushroom, and no one would acknowledge me. Wow. It was just like they treated me like I was a crazy person, like I was one of the homeless people on the streets just shouting to himself, and I was like, wow. And I remember getting so emotional and I started to cry because I was like, have we gotten so busy with our daily lives and our schedule and our routine that we don't even acknowledge each other. We don't even acknowledge other people's existence.
Yeah.
Things could be so simple for us.
Yeah.
It could be so fucking simple.
Agreed.
Yet we choose to involve ourselves in these things that we don't need.
Sure.
And these motions or these paths that are somewhat destructive. And I couldn't for the life of me get anyone to talk to me.
Wow.
And it was so depressing. And as the way I saw myself on mushrooms was just like my world had shifted 10 inches to the left, and I was watching reality as it was in motion, and it was the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen, and it woke me up.
Sure.
And Terry said, I wanted to do this for you. Now that you saw what you saw, what's your way forward when your world starts to realign back to reality?
Yeah.
What's your way forward?
Yeah.
When you just saw what you saw, when things could be so simple, when the only answer to our existence should be love and understanding and compassion, it's gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
And it did. And it changed me forever, dude. That was
Sure.
it was such an amazing experience. And I think that's why I feel it was an extreme brain exercise. It snapped me out of it.
Yeah.
And when I sobered up, I was like, okay, it's on.
Yeah.
Like now I know.
Yeah.
Now I know what my purpose is and what I need to do and how I should carry myself through my existence.
Yeah,
It was beautiful, dude. It was so
Wow.
beautiful. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny because I think about how that affected me and how I sort of got fearful of losing control.
We all do in a sense.
Yeah, and I think part of me is reluctant to do it again because I feel like I already understand
Right.
the perspective of observer to some degree.
Right.
And I think maybe it's because I've traveled. I kind of think that those moments in my life of drastic change, they shifted my world.
Right.
As in a trip.
Right.
Literally a trip.
Right.
And I had to readjust, realign, reassess myself with the world around me. And it was along those lines where the veil was lifted, the perspective changed because the fear was now just education.
Right.
And now I realized our species is the same in Germany as it is in Sacramento, California.
That's right.
And, most people are striving to have love and connection as the most important thing in their life. And I think without that veil ever being lifted and just the commotion of all the information you gather in your everyday routine in your life, things can be a little confusing because your relationships with people are really what your bloodline is to reality.
Yeah.
And when you witness a relationship change because somebody's taking matters into their own hands, making some really bad decisions,
Right.
there's a moment where you have to decide, is it worth the interaction?
Right. Absolutely.
And when you cut somebody off because you're protecting yourself, that's a bizarre concept.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre concept because now you understand there's boundaries and there's an importance for them.
Absolutely.
And I think when you are also thinking that love and connection are everything, but boundaries are also something.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a strange fact of life. And going back to the simplicity of things or how simple things could be, I think you can make complex things simple for yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think, complexity is just art. It's just expression and the inability to sort of wrap your head around everything at once.
Right.
And I think that's what our life is art.
Yeah.
Our life is an expression, and I think, it's up to you. And I understand that world peace starts inside. And I think that's really what I'm trying to live by. It's like, I can foster every moment with people to be worth something profound. Yeah. And, when someone like yourself walks up to me in the street and asks me for directions, I'm going to look you in the eye.
Right.
I'm going to acknowledge you. I'm going to look you up and down.
Right.
I'm going to completely embrace your existence.
Right.
Because for God's sake, there are people who are blowing you off left and right.
Oh, yeah, every day.
And I think that's my commitment to myself is don't look away.
Right.
Acknowledge everybody. Even if they don't feel like they really want to be acknowledged, just give them that, because that's all I feel like I owe anybody.
The acknowledgement bit, that's funny you bring that up. I do my best to do the same thing, to acknowledge people and look them in the eye. It's this weird thing because for me, I can literally see the wheels turning with those people, especially when I engage with them. They look at me and they're like, oh my God, first of all, he's black. There's this thing hanging out of his nose. He's got tattoos, yet he's articulate and he speaks, so profoundly, and he's an educated person. And this is not what I'm used to seeing on television. So you can kind of see, and that's a weird thing to say, but it happens.
I get it.
You get it.
I get it. I haven't had braces. I don't think I'll ever get braces.
Right? I think that do you ever have I know this happens to you. You have a conversation with people or clients or something on the phone, right? You're gonna have at some point some face to face. It's almost as if when they finally get to meet you, they're so shocked because they didn't imagine your voice matching the way you look.
Of course. Oh, I mean, I'm Hispanic all the time without even trying. I'm not even trying, and I'm Hispanic. But, I used to digest that differently, but nowadays it's like, cool, man, if that's where you want to go.
That's where you want to go with it. That's your prerogative, I guess. Good
well,
grief.
What's interesting about, sizing you up to what our theory is of you, I didn't know you all that well.
Yeah.
Coming over here, I was excited because I knew of you, and there's an authenticity to what you put out there for people to see.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and you find a muse that's on that same level, and you both express that together in this connection. And
absolutely.
When I see you do that, I love that that's what you're looking for, and I can tell that that's what's under your microscope, is that sensual part of people.
Yeah, I take it you're referring to the photography.
Yeah.
Instance. Yeah, absolutely. There's this wonderful thing that happens with the people I create my art with. I wanted to take a different approach with that because I realized the industry was extremely saturated with this weird beauty standard, and we see it every single day. We see it in Instagram and all the different applications out there. But there's this wonderful thing I get to do with people who are not necessarily experienced that agree to come and do photo shoots. They'll come over here. They'll converse with me just like we're doing right now, and then when it comes time to us actually doing the photo shoot, I have this thing I do for them. I take them into the bathroom and I have them tell me something about themselves that they don't like. And then I hyper focus on that in the photos, and it turns out to be something beautiful.
Wow.
Most of my subjects are women. And women are subjected to these crazy standards every single day. We see it, we feel it. Even in our relationships, how many times do you have to reassure your love that she's beautiful and that you mean the world to her, and regardless if it's lady time and she's not feeling herself, you still think she's beautiful. You want to eat her alive.
Yeah.
And that reassurance, that constant reassurance, is because of those weird standards that society puts out there for women.
Indeed.
And so I try to break it down. You see this painting behind me. That's a painting from 1874. That's a beauty standard from several hundred years ago. And it's a whole Botticellian style of women and how they portrayed women back in those days. That was the beauty standard. And as you can see, it changes, obviously, over time. No matter if you're more voluptuous or more skinny or whatever, it's always going to change. So if it's always going to change, why do you need to follow that standard? Why do you see it so important to follow it? And so by running these little exercises and stuff and working with some of my models, I don't know if you knew it went down like that, but that's what we do here. I bring them to my home and I say, hey, before we go out and we make art together, I really want to make sure that you're comfortable and tell me something about yourself that you don't like, and then I'm going to show you that that's not real.
Yeah.
The moment that you step into this house or this session, I want to let you know that the interaction is just between you and I. I think you're beautiful, and we're going to make art together. Don't fuck with everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
And when you're able to create that level of comfort for them, it shows through the photos.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's kind of what you see, these sporadic little moments on, like Instagram. I post like these photos.
I gotta say, listen, there's an egotistical part of me too that.
Okay.
And I look at it, and I'm like, fucking Avery, man, so fucking talented. Fuck that guy. But I love it too. I love your vision. I love your bravery.
Thank you.
The process of inviting people into your home and for the sake of art it's a weird thing to to propose to somebody. Is like, look, let's look at the ugliest thing you think is about you and let's highlight it.
Right.
That requires a tremendous amount of trust and confidence or belief.
I just like to show people that whatever you think is the standard out there for beauty, if you worry about looking like Kim Kardashian or something like that, it's all fake shit, man. It's all post-production stuff.
Yeah.
And you could look exactly the same, but that's not what our goal here is. I'm just taking pictures of you. I think you naturally are just beautiful.
Right?
So I tend to tell people, don't wear a lot of makeup, because if you do, it's gonna show on the film, because I got those super hyper lenses that's gonna pick up everything. And I need you to feel as comfortable behind the camera as possible, because it will show. And so my sessions they're not traditional sessions. It's more of like a hangout. It's more of like, we're shooting this shit. It should be that way, right? Just to produce that level of comfort within the individual. And so it's just funny because I got into photography on accident. I was really into film, and these cameras have the capability of shooting film. These digital DSLRs. They're
I saw
awesome.
you're into the slow-mo.
Oh, which one did you see?
Bear with me. Hold on. It was Ariel.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
Marilyn Monroe. She goes by. Yeah.
Listen, okay. There's a few things.
Sure.
Since I've been vocal in my opinions and stuff like that, there's just this weird side effect that I think and I understand that may change people's opinions about me based on what I have said or expressed. But let me reiterate, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about half the time. I'm just letting out whatever's inside.
Right.
The truth be told, I think everybody's valuable. I think everybody is amazing. And Ariel and Marilyn, I think they're both amazing people.
Yes, they are. Ariel is just a fucking breath of fresh air. Honestly, if it wasn't for Ariel, I would have never met Ginny.
Okay.
And working with Ariel, she's just this sort of like whimsical, she's like a real life fucking fairy.
I know, it's bizarre.
It's really bizarre. And everybody who might listen to this that knows Ariel would be like, yes, you're right, right? And I remember asking her, we had actually did a photo shoot first before we actually did that segment, that film. And Ariel was also the person that really got me to hone in on the whole photography thing. I understood why photographers do what they do. There was a photo that I nailed. It was just a perfect shot with her. And it was just like, the sun, it was like a ray of like heavenly light, like beaming on her in this moment. I took her all the way. We went on a fucking adventure. I took her all the way up to a family friend's property in the Redwoods.
Oh, nice.
And we filmed out we shot out there. And she wore this beautiful, elegantly laced nightie. And, she's got her freckles. She's natural, not a lot of makeup, the red hair and everything. And I had her lay in that light, and I just stole a moment of time that was just like, that till this day, people like will message me and say, hey, is that photo for sale? I'm like, holy shit, This is why photographers do what they do. They find their niche and they find their style and they fucking hone in on it. And so she was the one who really got me to focus in more on the photography bit than the actual filming part. But when we did, I asked her again. I was like, hey, would you be interested in doing sort of a visual art film? And I'm a lover of music and film, and I love the blend of the two mediums together. And so there isn't a lot of dialogue that you can hear. It's just music behind a scene.
Yeah.
And originally it was going to be shot in segments of these different couples having an intimate moment. And originally she was dating, what was his name? He was always hanging out in you guys' circle, but he was a sound guy, Baldwin.
Yeah, Peter Baldwin.
Is that his Peter Baldwin?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. But he was goth. He wore like Prince frills.
He's another
and stuff.
beautiful creature.
Yeah,
he really is.
He was an interesting fellow. And I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing to shoot you two, like performing a scene. You guys have this like chemistry that would be amazing to show on film. And I've known Ariel to do a lot of theater work, so I was like, hey, I want you to do something for me. When you film the scene, I want you to make it real. She's like, no problem, I got you. I have an idea what you're talking about. And she messaged me back and said, hey, problem. Phil, that's his name.
Yeah, Phil. Okay, yeah.
Phil was not...
Sorry, Phil.
You don't know, right?
You're beautiful.
You're beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Phil was not okay with shooting the scene because it was going to be a bathtub scene.
Oh.
And Ariel was like, well, I know Phil isn't okay with shooting the scene, but I have a friend who is interested in doing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, who's your friend? And she was like, well, it's a female, and her name is Marilyn. And I was like, oh, okay, first of all, stop right there. If we're going to do a female-on-female scene, I really need to be extremely careful on how I film this because I don't want to put the wrong idea out there. This isn't like classic porn or something like that I'm filming here. I want this to be fucking real.
Yeah.
And she was like, I think we got you. Like, on our way up, we shot in Yuba City at a friend's house, at another model's house who had this beautiful old Victorian house with like these classic tiled bathrooms and just the ambience and everything was just beautifully set. And we set up in there, and I told them, I was like, hey guys, this is the scene. Let's improv here. I know you're used to doing this on the spot. I want you to make this real. I want you to make this believable. You guys are together and you're having an intimate moment in the bathtub. And I want to fool people. This isn't a beginning scene of a porn shot. This is some real shit. And they nailed it. And I just took different takes and cuts, and I pieced them all together, and it was something the two of them together just performing the scene was just magic.
They are 100% okay with being amused. They really... And the amount of... Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I'm taking the positive route.
I was going to ask, like, what was your interpretation of that scene? Like,
and I'll share that with you. But the bravery and the courage that Marilyn has...
Yeah.
There's nothing that holds her back.
Nothing.
And to just become an instrument of expression like she does, in all the ways she does, she blows my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
She blows my mind. And Ariel, like you said, she's got this weird tooth fairy effect where you're like, you're not supposed to be here for very long. Yeah, like you're like a pretty flower that's, outlasting the season. But she... the way that they lean into their art showed on that film. Yeah. And that they they're not people who've been intimate together that I know of. Right. Based on the history I know of those two. But they just leaned in and like the pace in which you reveal this. Yeah. And it is visual art. You captured what you were... Because I'm standing there like... I feel myself just like staring at the pretty light, you know? Yeah. And mission accomplished, man.
Thank you. Yeah.
I try to think of it without knowing them, but it's not possible.
It's not possible. Yeah. If you know them, you're just like, I don't know what I'm watching, but it's fucking beautiful. And I had some ideas about it the initial start of the video, but now like coming out of it, this is really artful. And it was taken that way too by people who
Of course
took
it
the
was.
video
You
and
had credentials.
it definitely did.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was weird. It was one of those moments. It actually surprisingly got picked up by a porn blogger. And,
Oh, wow.
and the porn blogger was just like, I don't know what the fuck it is I'm watching, but this shit is just like beautiful. I thought I was going into watching like some girl on girl action, and then all of a sudden it was just this intimate, beautiful moment between two people who were being extremely passionate and together in the moment and
Yeah.
really into each other. And again, that was just a little segment of the bigger picture, which there's a music video that ties all of those things together, so you kind of understand what the fuck is going
Sure,
on.
sure.
But just that scene together and being able to utilize some music that kind of flows along with the scene, that's my art. That's
Yeah.
what I do. That's
Right,
what
the cutting room floor.
cutting room floor. That's what I love to do, is just to match
That's what
music.
the studio's goal is.
Exactly.
When you can lock out the outside world for a while and just marinate
Yeah.
in the creation.
Yeah.
That, I didn't realize that about this is when I'm in the closet doing the intro and screwing around.
Right.
Because this is the space that I get to do whatever.
Right.
Well, I've been doing what's called a brain dump.
Okay.
And I'll go in there and just whatever I think about the world as it's presented, I just chomp on it a little bit and out loud. And a lot of times I'll do it and then just leave it be, and I'll do what I meant to come in here and do.
Right.
But I had realized in the past few weeks how valuable that is to me to go in there and express all this crap. Like, it's like you're literally like dumping all the trash can out and see what the hell I think is. And I'm spewing out racism, blah, 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 politics, blah, blah, blah. Child rearing. It's my opinion.
Right.
But, I'm
But it's
also...
crucial. It's your method.
Sure.
It's what you do to get going in your craft. And might I add, you have the voice for this, by the way.
Thanks, man.
And may I ask, I have to ask
Sure.
this. Are you doing the music bit in the beginning?
No, that's...
Who is that?
That's my friend David, the one who got published as a cartoonist.
He did
Shout
that?
out to David. Yeah.
Wow, I love it. It's so inviting. How does it go? I'm on something in a state.
Yeah.
Something. Oh god dang! How does it go?
Another episode of
Relative roads and then.
Yeah.
I fucking love
That's
that.
great. I'm glad you love. Oh,
I
he's
love
gonna
it.
love that.
I love it.
I do too. I
amazing.
thought about it, and it's like, you think when you start out, okay, you have some skeleton things.
Right, right.
I thought for a while, I'm like, well, I'll update that, but nah, I like it.
It's amazing.
I fucking love it.
It's fucking amazing.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
love it. And that's why I was like, dude, I gotta get with Mike and
That's
I gotta
amazing.
talk to him.
Thanks,
This is
man.
amazing. It's professional. It's intriguing. I love podcasts. There's quite a few I'm listening to right now, based primarily on my girlfriend's like lists of things. Like, she
Sure.
always has things going on in the background. Most of it true crime and like some morbid shit, because it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Human condition and
Yeah.
people who go down that path. But
Yes.
but it's wonderful. It's wonderful that you're doing this thing where you get to talk to everyday individuals about their life and their existence and things that are going on in their world and
I feel
how it
that
affects
way.
them. It's beautiful. It's important because I feel like we're getting away from that.
Agreed. And yeah, kind of, it's a good place to switch it up. What I knew of you that I kind of like, because I told a few key people in my circle, like, hey, I got a podcast this weekend. I'm going to see Avery. Who's Avery? Oh, he's an amazing photographer, but he also is like, gets this cool ass job where he climbs up in those turbines.
Yeah.
And that's what I knew of you, and that's how I vocalized it.
Right.
But, so yeah, do you still work on the...
I do. I've been there for about... Jesus, this is the 13th year. I've been climbing fucking wind turbines for 13 years. It's an amazing field. It's ever-changing, and it's growing, obviously, with renewable energy. Solar is the other venture. But I work for a company called NextEra Energy. They're basically Florida's utility. Like, we have SMUD here.
Yeah.
That's Florida's utility.
Oh, okay.
But they also invest in renewables, whether it be solar, whether it be wind, thermonuclear. natural gas. They've got pipelines. We're the largest in wind in the United States.
Damn.
It's crazy.
So,
Yeah.
what is there a big difference between the wind turbines and solar? Like, what's the benefit?
Oh my goodness. The benefit is that it's free energy. We get the wind blows, and this is basically a sort of a jump start to how wind works. But as the wind blows, these turbines have a sensor on the back that will basically tell you which the wind direction and how fast the wind's going. The machine will yaw itself into the position of the wind, and the mechanical energy that's produced from the blades and the rotor will transfer through a transmission system and hook to a generator, which will in turn produce electricity and throw it back into the grid. I can go into the science about it, but it's very, very complicated.
Sure,
if you understand how generators work, via Tesla's invention, you're able to match mechanical energy to synchronous speed of that generator. Once you surpass that speed, you start to generate. And so those wind turbines are borrowing energy first to run the motor, and then as the mechanical effect takes into place, it starts to generate, and then it turns in from being a motor into being an actual generator. One of those things can produce power for about 750 homes. Just one wind turbine.
How far out does the energy harnessed from those go out?
They go to a substation, and then it goes through a collection system. So it's crazy. It's all tied to the grid. We're all tied to the grid from here to Canada, bro. It's a trip, man.
Wow.
So every time, like wind, I don't know what the projection is, but they hope to have wind sustain majority of the grid is the hope, for renewables. And start to dismantle a lot of the more harmful energy sources like nuclear and coal and things like that. That's why there's such an uproar about, coal plant shutting
down. But what's your thoughts on nuclear power?
I don't really have thoughts about it. It's just another way of producing energy, though. I do worry about its environmental effects. I think with the amount of money that's being put into these power plants to run, it's a little bit more sustainable to go wind, a lot less resources and a lot less hazards and exposure. But ultimately, between wind and solar, I don't really have too much knowledge about how the solar panels work. In a sense, to tell you which one's better than the other, but the fact that it's less harmful to the environment, I'm all aboard with that. That's my main thing, and that's why I enjoy really being in that craft of work. Our job is to maintain and re-engineer those machines to make them more efficient, because everything affects its output in a way. If the blade is off alignment, guess what? The energy produced from that turbine is going to be choppy, or it's going to be it's going to take effect on all the other components in the machine. It's just like a car. If you got two of your brake pads that are jacked up, what do you think it's going to do to the rest of your car and your suspension system and stuff? It's the same thing. Same thing. But I mean, other than being 300 and something odd feet in the fucking air and working on some pretty heavy equipment, I mean, it's a pretty fun, challenging job.
Okay. I want to know about that part.
Sure.
But how old were you when you first started? You said 13 years. I don't even know how old you are
13 years. I am at 37. I'm actually going to be 37 in March, March 13th. So my birthday's coming up.
Happy birthday.
Pisces, man.
Amazing. Now it all makes sense.
It makes sense, right?
Cancer. Yeah.
Oh, are you a Cancer?
Yeah.
My son's a Cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you crab.
Yeah, we're soft individuals. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. That's so amazing. Makes sense.
It does.
Makes total sense.
It does.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so you were 13 years younger.
13 years younger. So
23?
23, yeah, 23, 24 years old.
Straight out of college.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, definitely, which is funny. I moved to SAC to go to college up in SAC, and I was going for a computer science major.
Moved from where?
I moved from Tracy, California. Went to high school in Tracy.
Okay.
My parents decided to leave to the East Coast when I was around 16 and a half years old. So I've been on my own since I was 17. 17 years old. I've been humping it.
And you all made that decision together.
No, that was just my dad. My dad was wishy-washy. He missed home and he wanted to go back and be around family. And I think he just crossed his fingers that his kids would follow.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget it. They gave me the ultimatum. They're like, hey, so we're going back home. What do you want to do? I was like, I can't leave California. This is my home. This is all I know. This is my roots. So they're like, okay, well, we'll try and help you out as much as possible. Get your bearings a little bit, and then if you ever need to come home, you have a place. I think they were banking on me failing.
Sure. That's interesting though, because you had a lifeline.
Yes.
From the get-go.
Yeah.
So you chose to stay out here.
Absolutely.
And you were able to follow through without any major...
Oh, it was a struggle. Trust me. It was definitely a struggle. I remember still being in high school.
Okay.
And I moved in with my homie who's Filipino, so I know all about the heritage and the culture.
This is right where I'm supposed to be. Okay.
And, that was a really cool experience, and I lived with them for about 4 or 5 months or so. When we graduated high school, I think my parents came back. We did the whole graduation thing. Everybody came back to celebrate. And then at that time, I told them, I was like, hey, I got an apartment with some friends down in Sacramento. And, oh, God, I wish I would have moved to Midtown. But I ended up moving to fucking, Watt Avenue. Ugh. Yeah. Watt. And you know where the country club is? Where they had the tower bucks?
It's one of the nasty armpits of Sacramento.
Oh, I'll never forget it. I remember packing my Integra full of my things and my shit. Yeah. And I pull up at, right there at the country club thing. And my whole fucking car lights up like a spaceship or a spacecraft just shined its light upon my car. And it was the ghetto bird. It was the fucking helicopter. And I heard, stop running. And then I looked to my left, and there's this guy darting. He's on foot, and he's racing in between traffic, running from the cops, from the ghetto bird. Wow. And I was like, oh no, I hope I didn't move to a bad area. Turns out I actually did. So I ended up living right there by that country club, right behind it, in a set of apartments with some friends that I had went to school with in Tracy. They were thinking about transitioning into Sac State or some of the community colleges in the area. Yeah. And I went to... Sorry about that. She gets a little banshee cry. She's just to say too. Yeah. But yeah, been there, and I went to Consumnes. American River. American River. Went to American River for a little bit.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I was hoping to transfer from American River into Sac State for the computer science program, the computer science program they had there. Yeah. And I wanted to get into gaming. And,
you were going to program.
I was going to program.
Okay.
And hopefully double major in foreign language. For translating Japanese text games into English. I know, I loved it.
How the fuck do you get into something like that?
I was a hardcore gamer, man.
Yeah.
At big time, and that's why I clicked with a lot of people in SAC because they were all gamer nerds, and they played video games.
Wow. Okay, so that's cool to know that's where it started.
That's where it started.
Yeah.
And I moved away from Sacramento. I got fired from my job at Verizon. That's actually where I met Ashley. I met her at Verizon.
Okay.
And then
wow, that was 10 years ago.
That was a long time ago. Got fired from that job. Ended up leaving Sacramento because a homie had mentioned a job out here working with the wind turbines. He's like, hey man, there's a position, it's temporary, and I think you might like it, and let's see what you would do, if you jump in here, see if it'll grow on you a little bit. And I remember jumping on as a temporary person, and I was like, this is great, this is challenging, it's new, it's not repetitive, it's different. I don't have a fucking boss, leering over me, what are you doing? It's here's your plan of day, go do that wind turbine thing you guys do.
Wow.
And they'll provide the training, cool. They'll let you travel, you can go to different states, and we're all over the place, man.
Wow.
The wind turbines are everywhere, especially with this company. NextEra is huge.
Wow.
Big time.
So much we don't know.
I know.
That's always there. We all drive through, commuters, we all drive through that area, and we look at the astonishing existence that they are.
They're
just
massive.
These massive, like, not building structures.
Yeah,
It's not a building to us, you know? Like, but you're out there climbing these fucking things.
Yeah. It keeps me in shape. I'm 37 years old, and I'm starting to get gray hairs and shit on my chin.
Sure.
And even though you might look at yourself in the mirror and feel old, you're like, wait a minute, I'm climbing these damn things, and I feel like I'm in shape. I feel like I'm still doing pretty good. You're gonna pat yourself on the back a little bit. But like, I mean, other than the challenges and stuff, there are some concerns that I have, even, being there for a while. The machines get a little old, and, things happen, the integrity of certain components, just like a vehicle, things break down, you're exposed to a lot of stuff.
Have you ever witnessed something crazy with those things?
We have seen one catch a flame, for sure. There was an issue with one of the components, and it did catch on fire. We had some, not with the company, but other companies that, they'll kind of post a bulletin, hey guys, let's have a safety stand down and talk about what's happened in the industry. There's been fatalities, obviously, in the industry with fires and people being caught up there, inexperienced technicians being caught in the crossfire. And you worry about, there's also a worry about people's mental health as well too. Whatever's going on personally at home, that this is morbid to say, but when people climb at such heights, they might go through these moments of morbid thinking, like, my life is shit, I'm going through the ringer.
Gotcha.
I look overboard, I'm like,
might as well.
I might as well. We've had situations where we've worried about that, but haven't actually had that happen with certain people, in the industry. We're like, okay, let's take a dial back and let's talk about what's going on in your personal life. And it's really a thing that. Oh, he's really singing it. Taco.
He's like, preach, brother.
He's like, preach it. He's morbid. I told you, he's a murder bird. Anytime there's like gunfire, people getting murdered on television, he goes apeshit.
Interesting.
It's really weird. That's why we kind of nicknamed him the murder bird. He's very morbid.
Somebody's got to think about that.
I know, right?
Might as well be the bird.
Yeah. So, but very interesting field to go back to it, and there are some concerns and some worries. It's a high voltage. We deal with 34,500 volts. You touch that, there's no coming back from it.
Yeah.
It's a wrap.
Yeah.
And obviously the heights and stuff like that. So things fail with your harness equipment.
Do you feel with the concern and the effort to help you guys deal with your psychological aspects of your lives, do you feel that with that support, it improves your life all around?
Absolutely. The funny thing is like the company puts it out there, but they don't. It's weird. It's like they don't want to go down that path, but they offer the services if you need it. And when you call those services, they actually tell you, it's like, hey, if you're a manager, it's mainly geared towards like managers and stuff because they deal with a lot.
Sure.
They're dealing with maintaining site operations. There's major amounts of money going on. There's people's personalities and seeing, oh, John's not having a day today. I wonder if I should pull him aside and talk to him and offer him the services of saying, hey, do you need someone to talk to? They offer a lot. And they have these 800 numbers that you can call, but they don't necessarily advertise it, I think, as well as they should, and say, hey, by the way, we know that psychologically you might be going through some stuff, and if you ever need someone to talk to, dial this number. This isn't to push you off, but this is a service that we understand, and we want to get you some help. Yeah. And I've utilized it myself, and it is phenomenal. It's phenomenal, yeah.
It's funny because I hear you tell me that, and I believe philosophically that every job, every person needs that kind of support.
Absolutely. I agree too. I agree.
And hearing your story and how they're sort of like they're in and out of it.
Yeah.
It makes me realize like we're just that unevolved still.
Right.
Because truth be told, like we're always concerned.
Absolutely, we are.
You can shove it behind the door or whatever, but we're always thinking like, who needs help in here?
Exactly. But you know what the funny thing is, because I've utilized the service, we have our little safety meetings, and I make sure to make an effort to say, hey, guess what, guys? there's this wonderful 800 number. If you guys are ever struggling with marital problems or relationship issues, it's not just for work shit. It's also for personalized things that you just need to get out. It's a wonderful outlet. You guys should partake in it. And people are like, I didn't even know that we had that as an option.
Yeah.
And so you'd be surprised just by talking about it how much you sort of get people to get involved and really open up. I have people come and just talk to me on a regular, like, hey man, like, what's that number? What's that number again? Because I'm kind of going through shit, and then it kind of like leads down a path of like, I was an asshole, and me and my girl are going through some problems, and you just seem like, just looking at you on Instagram and stuff, you seem like you have your shit together. Like, how did, and it starts getting personal, And I started to realize, like, holy shit, people just honestly need an outlet to just talk and be listened to.
That's it.
And that's it, man. That's it.
And the problem is, like, we sometimes shut each other out because we don't agree with the message.
Right.
But we agree with the expression.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, that's what I was talking about earlier, being politically torn. And, I know people who even have an issue with somebody in the middle.
Right.
And it's like, where are you happy? Where are you happy? I mean... there's this perspective of all encumbered humanity, like, we're going to do this together, and then you're willing to say, shut the fuck up.
Right.
Your points aren't valid. And it's like, where do we draw the line? Where does the boundary land? I don't want to disconnect from you, because there's a good chance you're just going through something.
Absolutely. The thing I've learned that I've definitely gotten good at is being an observer, is like, piecing things together. There's a reason why people act the way that they do. There's a reason behind it, and understanding that reason will help you better understand that person. And you can, and it'll actually help you kind of interact with that person a whole lot better, to where they receive your energy a whole lot better than what it probably has been in the past. I started to be more patient with that and really be taken back and be more of an observer. It's like, okay, this person seems to be extremely narcissistic, but there's a reason for that. And I also heard that this person didn't have a really good home life, and that they were consistently yelled at by their parents at a younger age. Makes perfect fucking sense. Why the world seems to be in complete utter chaos for them consistently, and nothing's ever good, and they got to shit on everything that's positive. There's a reason for that. Right. Psychologically, they might not come to that real, they might not understand what's going on upstairs, but when you can talk them through and be like, look, dude, I'm not a doctor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I can tell you, just from observation, I understand what you're going through.
Sure.
And we can talk about it. We can converse, and we can get some understanding. I am going to put him in the other room.
Go ahead. I'm going to adjust this fucking thing that wants to, like, slide off.
He is just, like, going insane.
Well, we're talking about the darker stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, I got something to say.
I knew you were going to do this. I'm going to put you in the room, buddy.
That's better. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. There we go. Microphone check. 1, 2. Mike, Haley, phone check. Welcome back.
Sorry about that.
I'm not.
Hopefully that...
Part of the picture.
It's part of the picture.
Part of the picture.
All right, and we're back.
Yeah. There she is. I was just thinking, and I'll say it out loud.
Sure.
You're amazing, man.
Thank you.
You're amazing. Everything about you is just so delightful. Granted, I don't know everything about you, but all that I do know and all that I've witnessed thus far. And, it's intriguing that your parents were together as long as they were.
Yes.
Which kind of insinuates to me that you've been supported very strongly by these people.
I've definitely been brought up with that emotional integrity. We were able to talk about anything in the household. And, growing up in such an environment where you have, strong parents who rule together, with the iron fist and wanted to give their kids the fucking world, it really has this tremendous effect in your years growing up as a man. You start to take in all of those values and apply it. And I trust me, I thank my parents every chance I get, and I tell them, it's like, when I see somebody who struggles with anxiety and I'm like, oh, it turns out the reason why they have anxiety is because they grew up in a household where they got beat or they got yelled at or ridiculed consistently.
Yeah.
Thank you for not doing that in our upbringing, because I start to realize the effects of what that can do to a person in their older years.
Yeah.
And we talk about it all the time, even to this day. Even though we're so far apart, we'll get on the little tango and be like, "Hey, mom, dad, I just had this situation happen, with Austin, my son." I'm just like, "Hey, I had to sit him down and have the conversation about his emotions, and I don't think if I didn't grow up with that balance in the household, I probably would have never had that conversation with him. I probably would have said something along the lines of, 'Shut the fuck up! Why are you always crying all the goddamn time? Do some push-ups or something.' You know what I'm saying?" It's like, no, we have those conversations of, are you upset right now? How do you feel? Why do you feel that way? And this is what it's like to be sad and emotional, and that feeling that you're getting is natural.
Yeah. Don't
be shy about it. It's okay to cry.
Yeah.
You're in trouble. This is the reason why. We never had that growing up, right?
Yeah.
It's just like,
bad.
You do it because I said so.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no explanation as to why it is that you're getting in trouble for the thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I do differently than my upbringing, with that my folks brought me up to. I do a much different sort of structure with like explaining things to my son now. It's like, this is the reason why you can't do the thing that you want to do, because you can get hurt or it could be damaging. Not because dad doesn't want you to have fun or not do that. This is why.
Yeah.
Do you understand? He's like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, cool. Yeah. We can move forward.
Yeah.
There's explanation. There's conversation.
Yeah.
There's way more of it.
Well, you kind of have to, because they have access to information.
Yes, they do.
And they will always, from here forward, have that access. And
God.
Whatever you don't explain to them, they'll get explained to them by somebody else that may not be qualified or dignified enough to break it down safely.
Right.
So I'm with you. I explain the reasons as to why boundaries are set.
Right.
Why, when you violate those things, why the consequences are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that even after this is explained, you still have a choice as to which way you want to take this.
Right.
And if you choose to make the same mistake twice, you're going to be more accountable for how you digest that moment.
Right.
I can't explain this to you over and over and over. You kind of have to come up with your own plan or strategy.
Exactly.
Sorry, dude.
No worries.
This thing is like out.
It's just not having it, huh?
No, it keeps sliding out, but hold on 1 second.
No worries. While you're doing that, I'm going to make sure this bird is secure, because he's having it. He's having a time out there.
Definitely.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm sure you can just edit.
Oh yeah, I can do all that magical stuff in the cutting room. Murder bird. Stop falling.
So funny. I think what it is, he hears his homies chatting on the outside, and he just wants to sing his fucking heart out.
He's a gossip queen.
He's a gossip queen.
Yeah, yours is good. That's good. I'm gonna just sit up and see if that works. And I think that this parenting philosophy or philosophies, these are huge, man.
Yes, they are.
Because, here's the thing. Along my lines of thinking, we're all so concerned with the future, and yet there's not enough emphasis on children.
No, there isn't.
In society, it's like we're all arguing about all these things, and like sometimes the kids come up, but the truth is the adults running our political world, we're all children at some point.
Absolutely.
And humanity is known for its suffering, and if we don't consciously make an effort to better that suffering, how can we expect anybody to be consistent?
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, look, I can commit to treating everybody fair in my personal everyday life. I can commit to that. I'm solely committed to that. I can also forgive myself for not making every right decision. But ultimately, I try to lean back in the direction of fairness to all,
Right.
And that's the thing with the kid is like, dude, you're not going to make every right decision, but if you at least remember to have respect for everybody and their situation they're going through, you'll probably never be alone.
Yeah.
And that's humanity's biggest issue, is to be alone.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And, when you're a child and you're going through something and you're rejected by every resource, that's supposed to be there for you, it damages your soul. It deteriorates your mind, and eventually you're left to just your devices.
Yeah.
And you trudge through the planet living this painful existence. Everybody who's tied into your circle with you goes down that.
Yep.
We're all challenged with your challenges to some degree, and it's like, there's also personal responsibility.
Right.
Both sides are right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it. You need help, but after a certain point, you're going to have to do shit for yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's the philosophy I translate to my kid. It
That's
sounds
good.
like you're kind of on that same
I am
page.
definitely on the same level. Leading by example for sure. He's, you'd be surprised at how much they're watching you for examples. And it is very strange. And I knew that this time was going to come, but I have to ask: Have you had the talk with Declan yet?
Sex?
Yeah.
Some sexual conversations or conversations about sex. He's not interested yet. So,
Okay.
So he doesn't have in-depth questions.
Gotcha.
So when I bring up anything about sex, it's typically about what the information can do to a child's mind. And
Right.
That's my explanation to him, is like, the reason why this information, sex, is primarily for the mature mind, for an adult, is because there are situations in sex that can really alter your life.
Yes.
In a negative way.
Absolutely.
And I said, you have access to information. But if he knows that going in that direction is possibly going to do some damage, he's more likely to steer clear of it.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And we all know that, just like you said before, they're going to have access to these things. And I recently had to talk with my son, being 11 years old. It was that moment where I knew, I was like, when we have this conversation, I'm going to be 100% real about it. I'm not going to tell you, some off-the-wall bullshit about the birds and the bees. I'm going to let you know how it goes down. And chances are you probably already know.
Yeah.
But let's make it clear, and let's go through it. And I led the conversation with, what is it that you know right now?
Yeah.
And,
that's a good question.
And it's a good question because it kind of exposes what they've been exposed to. And you're just like, okay, now as a parent, I need to tighten up in certain areas to make sure that they're not exposed to the wrong things. Because, the internet is a cesspool of information that can be extremely detrimental to a person's upbringing. So
even just the insinuations in the theatrical things they watch.
Yes.
And the disconnection of reality in those motives, because those are to pull a laugh out or to stimulate you in some fashion.
Right.
But sex as an act in real time, I figure my job is to make it so that he's comfortable enough to ask me the important questions when the time comes and not run from me. So I limit the amount of information I get into and just talk about when you're watching things, just be aware.
Yeah.
Like this stuff is dangerous.
Yeah.
Sketchy.
Absolutely.
And he, and I see in his eyes, he leans into the trust he has with me, and he'll give me that. He'll be like, all right, I'll give you that. I won't fuck with it. You know what I mean? And it's a give and take.
Right.
Because look, I don't have control of his every move.
Right.
And he lives in 2 different households.
Exactly. Same with my son. So it's like the amount of exposure. It's like I can't be there to sort of, police whatever it is that you do. Mm-hmm. But I just want you to know that there's nothing in this world that you shouldn't be able to come and talk to me about. Like you can, first of all, I want you to be comfortable. I don't want you to feel like, oh my God, there's this gross thing. No, this is informative shit that I'm about to tell you. Mm-hmm. And this is what happens, when you involve yourself with sex. These are the things that could happen. And I usually relate it to sort of like the age limitations they have like on video games. It's like, how they have,
yes.
Games that are 17 and up. These are things, these are guidelines put in place for a reason to protect you. Does that make sense? And I'll ask him that. And he's like, yeah, I can understand that. I was like, it's not because we don't want you to have it. It's there for a reason.
Yeah.
And you're not old enough for it yet. But when you do become old enough, we're here. Our job as parents is to prepare you for that, because we want you to be safe, we want you to be happy, and we want you to grow up healthy. He understands it. And my sex talk went really, really, really well without going into too much detail.
Sure. Well, good for you.
But it went really, really good. And it's just bizarre to know that you're at that point in your life as a parent. You're just like, oh shit, time's moving. The talk just happened. Like
when you hear your father coming out again,
yes,
that is a bizarre twist in reality, and it's strange, especially if you see it on video.
Yeah,
you're like, I don't want to look at that. It's a bizarre fact of life, but at the same time, I mean, you feel as present as you do because of fatherhood. Absolutely,
and it's such a rewarding experience. To be a father, to be a young father at that too, it was, let's be honest, none of us were really prepared for it. It just kind of flowed. I remember when I found out that his mom was pregnant. I was 25. I was a quarter of a century years old. It didn't quite obviously work out between his mom and I, and one of those, and I feel comfortable sharing this, but one of the main reasons were because at that point in time in my life, there was a momentum of doing the things that I needed to do to get ahead in life, which was school and transferring to a college in the Bay Area. There were a lot of things going on, and I didn't know that she was pregnant at the time. She had been 5 or 6 months pregnant and kind of kept that from me. And anytime a man feels like his life is being shifted in a direction without his knowledge or control, we freak the fuck out. Unfortunately, that's just a common effect. No matter what, the situation is, that's just a common effect for us to feel that way. Mm-hmm. And so, I went a long time with that resentment of feeling like, I didn't have a choice over in my life, and it really affected it. But there wasn't a doubt in my mind when Austin came here that I wasn't going to be a good father. There was no doubt about that because I had such a wonderful example of parenting.
Yeah.
And growing up in a very strict household, by the way, my parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, so that was a thing within itself, growing up in that type of household. But with the morals and the teachings and stuff of that religion and how they were, I knew. It was instant. As soon as he was here, it was just like, boom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was such a bizarre thing, but it was such a beautiful thing as well. And seeing him grow into this little person, he's a fucking replica of myself. The things that he does. And then just like you said, like realizing that you're starting to mimic your parents' behaviors. And it's such the most stupid and mundane thing.
It's such a human thing.
It's such a human thing.
Yeah.
I caught myself the other day we all know kids just get shit on them, like on their faces and stuff like that. And I licked my thumb and I started to wipe it off his face, and he's doing, and I thought to myself, I was like, oh crap, my mom used to do that to me, and I hated it. I'm so sorry. It was just little things like that, but it's definitely been a rewarding experience in fatherhood.
As you speak about your experience with your parents as examples, and what you sort of instinctively know, intuitively, as a parent, or just as a man in the world, really, there's something that resonates with me about you that also resonates with me about another friend of mine who grew up without parents. Grew up in foster situations.
Oh, wow.
A couple of friends of mine,
Wow.
They grew up in foster homes. They grew up in situations that you could really justify a bad attitude with.
Oh, no.
But these guys are fucking brilliant.
Wow.
They're brilliant. One of them is the guy who just got published. He was in foster care through his childhood, and, he had parents that were just full of bad decisions, and he came out just this amazing artistic guy who has no problem calling me and expressing how he feels. We do that for each other.
That's awesome.
And this other friend of mine, he's an ex-Marine. His child was diagnosed with cancer at some point.
No.
He was so lost in his world that he got kicked out of the hospital. He wasn't allowed to return.
Oh, my God.
And I share that story because him today, and who he strives to be, and my friend David, who he strives to be. These are two men that represent an energy that I resonate with you.
Right.
And you have had the example. You have had the parents.
Yes.
You have had the ability to have these things instilled in you by generations before you.
Right.
But somehow, I don't think it was just them. I think there's something in you that pulls yourself in the direction of positive growth.
Absolutely.
Maybe lack of a better way to put it, but you seem to have this affinity in that direction no matter what. I mean, imagine any trouble you ever got into growing up, you got right up to the edge and then just went back.
Exactly. You're right on the mark, man. And it's because it definitely was because of the upbringing and being able to handle those situations, the out of control situations. I got exposed to a lot, man, in my upbringing, and even though we grew up distant from family, I chose to live my life in a way to where I'm a little bit more. I try to be a little closer and be more patient and more honest, and it's so weird to find out that there's so many people, even my friends, who just didn't have the same things. You would think every family would strive to be that stronghold, regardless of their own bullshit. But there's circumstances and things that happen in people's lives that, that take them other directions, and I get that. But that has an effect. It has an effect. And talking to people and understanding how they govern their lives, you can see it. You're like, oh, not to be an asshole, but that's the way you are. That's the reason why you're cynical and narcissistic, is because you didn't really have a strong base or a foundation of that emotional growth in the household. Your parents fought all the goddamn time, so of course that's why you have an issue with women. And I hope that's not me just making a wild assumption. It's just sometimes it's blatantly obvious. You don't you consistently get in fights with your girlfriend or your wife, and I just heard you get off the phone with your mom and ask her what the fuck does she want. You know what I mean? Like, that makes perfect sense to me. I'm very observant in that kind of way, where people's behaviors sort of transfer into their it sort of opens this big picture of why they are the way they are, and it helps me navigate. I don't know if you noticed it, I'm a very adaptive person. It seemed like when I met you guys, up in Sacramento, I just kind of wove into you guys' scene. You guys, you did the eye cup thing for a little bit, and I bet you guys were like, who the fuck is this? Who is this guy?
But I love California for that reason. And I attributed a lot of that perspective to the military brat upbringing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The world is the world. People are people. And at that time when we met, I was venturing into the world of performing arts and acting.
Oh, okay.
And I hadn't hadn't been doing it a very long time.
Wow.
But it's always been inside me. So it's almost like as soon as I started doing it, my whole world was ready for me.
Wow.
And I just walked into a space that was like the Truman Show. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
This was all for me to begin with. I just hadn't arrived yet.
Wow.
And when I slipped in, it's like, Ryan, this feels like family. Ashley is like family.
Yeah.
All the people in that community are family. I'm having fights with them in my mind, and they're not even in my immediate circle of people. But you don't know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Carry each other, and I think the spirit of diversity and variety and what Northern California seems to foster is like this dream of becoming who and whatever.
The hell you want. Yeah.
And there's a hippie aspect to it too, where there's a bunch of liberals all screaming out and yelling, but there's a lot of people who are in pain, screaming out and yelling, and the translation gets intermixed, and it's like I have to peel back and just have the moment with people, because that's where it's like I'm fucking in love with the fact that you exist,
right?
And that's really the simple form of all this complex perspectives.
Right,
like,
right.
The fact that you're here,
I know,
it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing, and it's chaotic in a sense to where you have to embrace it. You know, I know where you're going with this. You know, the beauty of existence and things of that sort. And that's one of my mechanisms that I use to help people who cope with, or to try and cope with, you know, depression on levels of, you know, not wanting to be here or not wanting to exist anymore. And I will sit with them in that moment. I would sit with them in that moment of despair and say, I get it. I understand. Yeah. Trust me, it's fucking crazy. Existence is bizarre to the point to where we're just like, yo, all the things it took for you to be here was complete chaos. And because of that, you have a choice whether you want to ride this thing out or you want to just go the other route. And I try to be with them in that moment when they're not feeling their best and be like, I understand. I've thought about it too. Fucks you up, huh? A even keel person like myself who's had a good family upbringing thinks about death and or suicide. It's like everybody thinks about it. Yeah. But you seem to have these moments where you dwell on it more than the average person. And I get it. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. But I want to let you know that because this world is so unpredictable, and because it took sheer and utter chaos in order for you to exist in this moment, things could have happened completely different. Sure. And you couldn't have been here. Yeah. But because it has happened, you might as well ride. You might as well take the ride, man, and see it all the way through. Yeah. And exist in this moment with us. We're all doing this shit together. And anything you have an issue with, we can help you get through it. And that's what we're here for. We're here to talk, and we're here to converse and bring you through this moment of despair so that you have a different perspective and a different outlook. And to let you know that there are people out there that understand. And I apologize for Taco. I'm going to go shut him up.
No, man, look, like, he's like wind chimes. And like I said, I'm doing this because I fucking love doing it. Okay, that's awesome. And, you know, if anybody has a problem with birds, then they're for the birds. Okay. Yeah, I ain't tripping, man. Yeah, don't worry
I love you. First of all, I love your fucking energy, by the way. Man. It's amazing. It's intoxicating. Sure. And I love that you do this thing with people, and I haven't got a chance to listen to too much of your podcast with other interviews. The only one I've definitely listened to was Josh, and I believe there's another one I started with another gentleman that you were a military brat with. Keith, yeah. Very interesting character so far.
Beautiful guy.
Really?
He's tormented by his own perspective sometimes, but he's been there for me intellectually, emotionally.
Amazing.
He's an interesting guy because he likes to disguise himself as an unknowing sort of just picture on the wall. But he's actually very observant, and he's got the spirit of an entrepreneur.
Good.
So he's an opportunist. He's looking, but he's also got a big heart, and he loves people. I mean, you know, when I met him, he'd just show up, and he'd be like, "Mike, you want to go with me?" We'd go to a farm right outside the town we lived in, and there was this community living there of other travelers. It was like a hostel where people would come and stay and work on the farm and live in. And he's a military brat. It's like, what the fuck are you doing here? But he just wanted to get to know everybody.
That's awesome.
And that's why, you know, he's on the Rolodex. I keep that.
That's cool.
Because he is a unique tool. When I want to touch base with reality, there's
certain people
a
that
list
you can...
of people that bring out certain things, and then I feel connected.
That's cool. I wish I was more like that, where I kept people on the Rolodex. I guess people would consider me almost like a Rolling Stone. I'm what's considered an ambivert. I can be both introverted and extrovert, where I can go out into the world and do my thing. But I'm in my element when I'm by myself, when I'm to my thoughts. It's just the Pisces in me. We're aloof. We're the dreamers. We get caught. We get caught in the cloud too often, and we have to be reeled back down in every once in a while. But it's amazing when I can get with people like you and conversate and just release everything that's been fucking swirling up for so long. It's a great outlet, and I love conversating with people that have the same energy as you do. I've never had a problem. For some strange reason, I thought to myself, I was like, fuck, man, if I was somebody else and I saw me, I wouldn't want to talk to me. Like, I wouldn't want to conversate.
I get that, because we criticize our own methods often, and it's. I don't think it's a space you can fathom all that well.
No, you can't.
So the choice is: do you want to stress out about it or not?
Right. I don't stress out about it. I just look at myself and I'm like, that guy wants to be left the fuck alone. I don't want to talk to him. But I have this thing where people are just like, yeah, what are you all about? You've got piercings and you're just this. You're a black guy, but you're not like the statistical looking black person that I'm used to seeing on TV. So I need to know what you're all about. And living in a place like Lodi, it's predominantly Hispanic and white and wine country and stuff like that. There's not very many of us walking around. So when they do see me, it's like they make it a point to be like, you're that guy. I go into a restaurant, they're like, hey, is it the usual cognac and soda and the roast beef and ajus? Can I get that for you? I'm like, yeah, I guess you can.
Wow.
And then when I see other black people in the community, we look at each other and be like, where you been, man? I thought I was the only one here. Are you okay? Is everything good? It's a very, very bizarre behavior and interaction I get, in certain areas. And thanks to my parents, I really grew up sort of aloof to those types of behaviors and the weird racial cultural things that people tend to carry with them. I truly never saw color, man.
And I have a
truly
question
never saw it.
for you.
Sure.
But first thing I wanted to say was this thing that lives inside you, Deepak Chopra. I don't know if you're familiar with any of his stuff.
Say that one more time.
Deepak Chopra.
Deepak Chopra. Never heard.
Yeah, he's a doctor, medical doctor, scientist, holistic healer, writer. He's really into the metaphysical thing.
Ah, gotcha.
And he says this thing that I really like, and he says that we are consciousness is the universe looking back at itself.
Interesting.
And when we speak, and the things that resonate between you and I, for whatever reason, I think you're in tune with this thing that lives in you and lives in me, and that we are the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the beautiful thing is, like, it's almost like being able to look in a mirror with a different reflection. And tap into some of the other conscious information that you've collected that is just an extension of my mind. We're in the moment together.
Exactly.
I made a decision to be here.
Exactly.
And now we're sharing. So I revel in that. And anytime, you're giving me a lot of compliments and I appreciate them. but like, it's one of those things you manifest the things you want, and relationships like this are what I strive for.
That's awesome.
And I'm so in tune that I just reach out. I'm like, I'm gonna talk to Avery. Interview? He's like, hell yeah. I'm like, boom.
Boom.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Meant to be.
There you go, self. How about that? So yeah, a little high five for me.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. And then, what was the last thing you had mentioned? The black thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I had my last podcast
Uh-huh.
was with a white gentleman, a
Okay.
friend of mine by the name of Reggie, and he's very hard up on his liberal politics right
Okay.
now, and he wants everybody to know how he thinks things should be. And fine, like I love the guy,
Right.
I love Reggie. I don't vilify him for his mode of being, but I had this conversation with him, and my father challenged me on this because he listened to the podcast, and I asked. Or the race thing came up, and Reggie said, "I'll never say the N-word." And I said, "Oh, the word nigger?" And he says, "Well, yeah, I'm not gonna say it." And I asked him, I'm like, "What does that word mean to you?" And he starts kind of going into what the history of the word, and why white people have owned this word as this, and his explanation. And my point was to him is like, that word means what you want it to mean.
Exactly.
And if you want to use it as a weapon, you can use it as a weapon.
Right.
Or you can just have it in the collection of lingo that you use to connect with people.
Right.
So it's all about the intent, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Agree.
But you know what you just said about being part of the black community, but
Right,
being
right.
educated to sort of think outside the box.
Oh my goodness.
What does that word do to you?
What the word does to me, it's not a cringe-worthy kind of word. It doesn't make me cringe. It doesn't make me upset. It doesn't make me go into this like philosophical thing in the history about the word and why certain people should use it.
Sure.
And why it's okay for the black community to use it. It's an ugly word. It has an ugly history behind it. And it doesn't affect me like it does everyone else, like I said before. It's just if we are to move forward as people, as a species, we need to move past these ugly forms, and we need to be amicable, and we should never obviously forget it. We have an entire month where we can reflect. The month of February, it would, obviously we just gained another day in February for the black community. But it doesn't really affect me, and it never has. It's funny because I got into this conversation with my folks because I didn't think about it, but they were brought up in the world of Jim Crow and racism and shit. Yeah. And I asked them, I was like, Mom, Dad, like, what went down when you guys were in like normal society? Sure. And like, how did you guys react to it? And they're like, honestly, Avery, like, we weren't really exposed to a lot of it being in this, like your grandparents did a really good job in making sure that they were positive about the direction and where we wanted to take things. And we needed to hold up our heads and aim higher. The Michelle Obama thing is, what was it? They aim low, we aim high, or something like that. Am I getting this wrong?
I don't know, but I know.
You know what I'm talking about? The whole thing, right?
The example, yeah.
But for me, I never really used it. I never felt the need to use the N-word. Of course, in music and shit, when you hear it, you'd be singing along, and it would come out. But I never got offended when, I was around friends and family who weren't black, who used the term and word, because I knew the intent behind it. It wasn't derogatory. It wasn't racist. It was just either, singing a song, or it was a term of endearment, using it as a term of endearment or whatever. I never had any weird feelings towards the word, if that's what you're asking.
Well, an insult is an insult.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't, honestly, like, so I don't know why I seem to be alienated from my father's perspective about this, and perhaps a handful of others.
Okay.
But, seeing as how I've been exposed to many cultures, we decide what's going to be offensive. For whatever reason, we've got this list of things, And mind you, I've been called racial slurs before. I look a certain way.
Yeah,
I've been handed that.
Yeah.
And my reaction when it was said was like, you don't even... Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, I suppose I am in this moment.
Yeah.
But, you know, it wasn't the most... The part that stood out the most was the effort to harm me with some verbal expression.
Right.
And that's the same. And I get the history of that term where it got all its controversy, and I respect that part of history. But to zoom out a little bit more, all of humanity has had some jacked up shit happen to them.
Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to take away the significance of slavery.
Right.
But even that, slavery across the board was with every culture.
Right.
Filipinos were probably slapped around quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's like...
Conquistadors and the Spaniards came over and
exactly,
occupied that, right? So,
they were the Mexicans of Asia.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, we know how bad the Mexicans get it here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But even in this aesthetic get-up as a Hispanic, like I don't care. I like the fact that I might surprise you. Who taught him how to speak like that?
I know.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's what intrigues people. That's how you make a positive change when you start to conversate with people, and they may have this idea, and they're like, oh, you know, look at this nigga walking down the street or something like that, and
Sure.
like, oh shit, wait, did he just use a big word?
Yeah.
Is he? How is he that articulate?
Yeah.
Like something is not right about this person.
Yeah.
I need to find out more, and then you start to change the narrative
Yeah.
a little bit when you start to talk to people.
Right.
And it doesn't become an issue anymore.
Yeah.
I let people, like, in the workplace, we have this conversation in the workplace all the time. It's like, why is it okay for you guys to say it, and then it's a big problem when I say it? It's like, actually, first of all, you're the one who brought this whole thing up in the first place. It's not a big deal. And and you're not offending me by saying it, because I know the intent behind it. You're not a racist person. I feel like I can judge that.
Yeah.
But these people, they get weird about it. It's like, but if you're telling me not to use it, then you're trying to take away everything that's happened. 400 years of condition and slavery, and Martin Luther King would be rolling over in his fucking grave right now. I was like, no. You're missing the whole point of where we need to be going forward.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Jesus Christ.
You're missing the whole point.
Yeah.
We're not forgetting here.
Yeah.
We're just moving forward amicably and learning from our mistakes in the past. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
And no offense, Reggie, I love you, man. But it really irked me that my father's like, well, you shouldn't, would you use it in front of a crowd of black people? I'm like, hell no. Well, and I'm like, listen, Dad, trying to, provocate somebody with any term is a mistake.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not trying to ruffle the feathers of anybody. Yeah. If I'm in a situation, i.e. a podcast, and I want to talk about the word nigger,
right,
I should feel like that's okay, because first of all, it's just a word in the language.
Absolutely.
And even if you tried to take it away, I'm still going to call you Prince. Like, you can change it up all you want. You're still Prince to me.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, I just think the art of conversation, the art of connection.
Yes.
There should be no boundaries. It should be limitless.
No, I agree.
In order to work out our problems, we can't get caught up in some dumbass limitation that is only put there by you.
Exactly.
You made the choice.
Yep.
Just like you're making the choice to better your life.
Absolutely.
This is a good choice to better this situation.
Absolutely.
Let it go.
But I bet it's so interesting to find out people's different, like how it affects different people. When you bring this up in the podcast, you're just like, oh my God, they're going to go down that route.
It's a little scary.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. It's scary, but it feels important. It feels like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't say it, but maybe I should.
Yeah.
I'm going to fucking do it anyway. And I realize I may lose friends. I may lose... But there are people like yourself that I don't feel like I would lose.
Yeah, fact, no, not at all.
I feel like I would gain an even deeper connection, because it's like, all right, you're on the same page. We're looking to the future.
Absolutely.
We're not fucking around with dumb shit. Like,
exactly.
Your photography and your modality of how you go about it, that's currency.
Yeah.
the way you open people up and they let you in and you let them in,
Yeah.
that is the exchange of currency.
Absolutely.
And that is the new world.
I hope so.
Well, think about it. You know, social media, all
Yeah.
these platforms where people are encouraged to express themselves,
Mm-hmm.
good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
It turns into an opportunity because other people want to be a part of that ride.
Right.
It's a thing. It's why podcasts are getting so big. It's
True.
like it's less of a hassle to produce, as far as I'm concerned. I've
Yeah.
tried the film, video production. That's a lot of time
It's a
and
lot.
effort.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a full-time working individual,
Yep.
I've got a small window of time
Yep.
to create,
Yep.
and I can commit on my own timeline to produce content that's important to me
Right.
and seems to have a really positive effect on those who interact
It
with
does. It really does. And I think more and more people need to listen to your podcast and learn from it and learn
Thanks,
that
man.
there's all these differences out there in the world, and there's nothing that you can't talk about. You should feel guarded about, you know, expressing. You can talk about anything you want to talk about. This is the outlet to do that. And for a person like yourself who's very you seem like you're extremely patient even with the touchy subjects, and you'll go through it, dude. You'll break it apart. Like I think there was one topic you were talking about with the gentleman with Keith, that you're talking to him about you know, black people being disenfranchised and reparations
Yeah.
and stuff. That's a very interesting topic. And he was, you know, he was deep into it, and
He's
I had
got
no
his-
idea that people, you know, thought that deep in detail about where we need to go as an ethnicity. And
It's so interesting.
It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. I was very fascinated by that
Yeah.
podcast, and I'm still listening to it because I think it's a two-parter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he's got a long history for being so young. He retired early in the Army.
Right.
You know, he's lived all over the world. Now he's a firefighter in
Wow.
California.
Wow.
It's fucking insane what he does to grow himself.
Right.
And then when you hear a stronghold on something like that from him, it blows your mind.
Yeah.
And you have to open up.
Yeah.
You can't contain it. It's not containable. It's like, I don't care. I love you anyways.
Yeah.
It's what it feels like.
Right,
It's like,
right.
all that bullshit that I'm trying to filter this through is, get out of here. I
Right, right.
love this man. I'm going to talk to him.
That's
I'm
awesome.
going to hold him close. And when the shit goes down, he'll be on the list of people to call.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Hey, man, let's go. Let's get up to the mountains.
Have you ever had those experiences so far in your time in doing this where you're just like, I'm never gonna talk to this person again, or that was a bad idea?
Nothing too dramatic.
Okay.
I'm toying with the idea of touching base with my most controversial interviewee.
Uh-huh.
And that was only controversial to me. Maybe to others, but to me personally.
Okay.
And the line of thinking doesn't seem to provide me with a safe perspective on the future of the relationship with this person.
Oh.
Until things take a turn. And I'm open to that. I'm open to having another conversation
Okay.
with this person to update. And update meaning I'm going to tell them how it affected me.
Gotcha.
And be open and honest about it. And I'm not going to hold them to any standard because I now know that I'm not going to force anybody to think like I do.
Right.
But I can hold space for the way anybody else thinks.
That's amazing.
So I'm challenging myself in having a conversation with this person, but with the idea that I'm going to be honest about how I feel. And I think it's just a practice effort in connecting with anybody is like, I'm going to feel certain ways about certain things.
Right.
But, you know, from a journalist spirit, my job isn't to change people's minds.
Right.
It's to just get to know what's on their mind.
That's important. In studying religion in college, I had a professor actually say it kind of sort of like this. He said, you know, honestly, my directive here is not to try and convert you guys to my way of, or my faith or my way of thinking. I just want you to understand. That's the whole point of this course, is we're going to study religion and we're going to fucking understand it. I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not trying to alter your state of thinking and or your faith. This is just what keeps me going.
This is perfect.
And that was beautiful. And I wish the rest of the world was like that. I wish the rest of the world were, especially when it came to like religion, they were humbled enough to say, I don't really know what's going on, but this is my faith. This is what I believe. If I'm wrong, whatever.
Sure.
But this is what drives me. This is what keeps me going every single day. Not, well, what is it that you believe?
Yeah.
Well, that's fucking wrong.
Yeah, this is a perfect segue because I recently this is on my top of topics that I've been.
Oh, really?
About. Yeah.
Really?
My friend Luis. Let me explain to you about Luis.
Okay.
He's a amazing connection I made after doing the podcast.
Cool.
And he's a man in his early 30s, ambitious real estate guy.
Okay.
But we talk on the daily. I call him almost before every podcast on my way so we can hype each other up.
Nice.
And he'll hype me up because
Nice.
he's just full of that fucking energy. Like, go get it. And we've had this discussion. We also have these things where we brush up against things and it's too jagged on both sides. So we try to peel back
a little bit, yeah.
Then we go back in, we peel back. And we toy with that,
Right.
that confusion because we both know we're not understanding each other and we're pretty hard up on what we think we know.
Right.
Religion has come up in this. He told me about an instance he had with this lady where he was making this great connection with her and then all of a sudden she started saying, "Are you a believer?" And he has this reaction to language like that that he shuts down a little bit or has this fleeting urge to like walk away.
Right.
And I explained to him, I was trying to explain to him, like, I used to have that same reaction to people that would start talking like that. I didn't have the same thought process. And that language reflected something I was in fear of within myself, which is, how it was delivered to me through childhood made me feel contained and constrained and limited. And I didn't want that, so I walked away from it. And then later in life, I learned that things are up to my interpretation.
Right.
I can dissect stories from any situation to fit my narrative.
Absolutely.
And that's what I do with religious rhetoric.
That's interesting because that's like the cardinal sin. You're never supposed to talk about two things: politics and religion.
Correct,
right?
yeah.
Because people don't really know how to evolve the conversation in a way to where there's understanding at the end of it. There's always discomfort and confusion and anger because you didn't get the other person to either understand what your faith is or it went the complete opposite direction when you started to talk about it. And it could be a very touchy subject. But with me, religion has always been something that at a young age, it confused me, especially growing up in a faith like the Jehovah's Witness is a very different ideology in a sense that, it's a very young religion. It's about 140 years old.
Sure, yeah.
So it's
half the age of America.
Yeah. So to me, growing up in that stuff, it was very fearful because the message that came across was always about it's us and them. You're either on the side of Jehovah and you try to convert other people into your beliefs because they're doomed.
Sure.
And there's no need to understand anybody else's faith because by doing that, by understanding other people's faiths, you'd be sort of second guessing your own in a sense. I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. If you're comfortable in your faith, why wouldn't you want to go and study and understand other people's beliefs? Right? Why can't you just go and sit in at on a segment with Zoroastrians and understand what it is that they believe, and maybe that would help strengthen your own faith and what you believe in. So I never had a problem in sort of sitting back and letting people talk to me about what their faith was.
Sure.
Whether they're Bible thumpers and they're super Jesus. Oh,
Sure.
God saved my life, and you need to come to church, and you should come to come study with me. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm good, but I understand this is what you believe. But my issue has always been, and I struggle with this for so very long,
Sure.
is the fact that people would say, I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah, I don't hear that often.
I heard it a lot.
Wow.
And it's almost as if people would have the conversations to spark the controversy on purpose, so they can
try to work you.
try and work you a little bit and be like, well, don't you, and that's a little, contradictory that you would believe in this because, the Bible says this. I was like, well, you know how many different versions of the Bible has been interpreted?
Yeah.
The Jehovah's Witness religion was founded by two people 140 years ago who weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, who interpreted the Bible to be a certain way and says that we're going to make a religion based primarily on this belief.
Yeah.
And it turned into what it is today, 140 something years ago. Like, my grandma is almost like, she was born around the time it was started.
Wow.
And, when you start to study religions and you understand that there are religions that are thousands of years old, what makes something 140 years relevant?
So the way I look at it is, when somebody is driven to maybe go on some sort of a recruitment, or somebody is just moved to talk about their faith in a way that is actively trying to appeal to you. Because here's what's happened to me is I've become more spiritual. And I don't subscribe to any particular religion.
Right.
But I've come up with my own version of the world, which is I believe in God, but people are the religion.
Right.
And love and compassion are gospel.
Wow.
And that was given to me by David, the cartoonist.
Oh, really?
He said that to me.
Wow.
Because him and I will talk, and he never rejects my spirituality. He doesn't have a problem with it. He doesn't try to talk me out of it. He's even tried to put it on in some way and be like, well, God loves you. I'm like, David, you don't have to talk like me. I'm just expressing. And I think what's happening in a lot of instances is somebody is working with a set of tools or some mathematical equations that are producing product or productivity in their life, and they're enthusiastic about the results, and they just want to share it, and they seem so encouraged and so in love, and they're witnessing all these would-be miracles, and they feel driven or obligated to share this, and all they're really trying to do is give you the gift of connection.
Exactly.
And I personally subscribe to that.
That's cool.
I think that no matter what you think is going down above the clouds or below the earth or whatever, I think if you're happy about it and your energy feeds into what energy I seek, we're on the same page. And if there's ever any commotion or controversy or any jagged edge we brush up against, it's now time to exercise our human ability to set boundaries. Yeah. And if you can't respect those boundaries, that's not your religion I'm going to blame. That's not your family of people who tell you to think a certain way that I'm going to blame. It's you not respecting my boundaries.
I've seen it also as a means of survival for certain...
It's a lifeboat.
It's a lifeboat. And even, like, I think, my grandmother was the one who started us off in the I call them J-dubs, Jehovah's Witness.
Sure, yeah.
And I thought to myself, I was like, out of all the religions that are out there, why that one? And when you start to do the research on it, you start to understand, you're like, holy shit, they, not only did they grow up in a time of segregation and things of that sort, but it was purely survival, belonging to a community, and being engulfed in acceptance and unification, and that must have been a beautiful thing for my grandparents, and I don't knock them for that. But I have to say, like, growing up in that ideology, that religion, was fearful 24/7 because I didn't understand, and I was born into it. Whereas they had the choice; they got to study, they got to understand that that's exactly what they needed in their lives, to help their morals and their existence, and propel themselves forward. But I grew up sort of resentful. Jehovah's Witnesses don't get to involve themselves in sort of what they would deem worldly activities. We didn't celebrate our own birthdays. We didn't celebrate holidays and stuff. And we were known, we had the microscope on us, like, oh, you're that Jehovah's Witness boy. You don't get to do all the things we get to do. Why is it that you believe the things that you believe? And I couldn't explain it.
Right.
I couldn't explain it, and I began to be flustered and confused, and I started to get resentful in my older years. And so in college, I decided to study religion, and that's why I brought up the example of that professor saying that I don't expect you to convert. I just expect you to fucking understand it. Yeah. And it was a beautiful thing, because as I got older, I get to talk to my parents, which is a scary thing about it. It's like, I know you guys still believe, but like, let's really dial into it. Can you accept me as an adult to talk about this very sensitive thing as to why it is that you believe what you believe? And my mom, it was this beautiful moment. My mom said, Avery, this is what Jehovah and his kingdom and his promises does for me, and the religion does for me. It has gotten me through my dealing with being diagnosed with breast cancer. It has helped me with my relationship with your father, and helped us remain a stronghold together to raise you guys. It has helped me through my own quarrels with existence. But you know what? If I'm wrong, whatever. And I was like, right there. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. What you just said is beautiful, and it made me so proud of them. Whereas I didn't see that when I was younger. It was like, you live in this household and this is what we do. And there was no explanation. But finally, there was this understanding of why it is that they believe what they believe. And it helped me move forward. And it's such a weird dynamic to see, like, you start to see like Netflix specials on the religion and all this information that's out there. And you start finding out these weird things about the religion and people's beliefs, and why they're so gung-ho about spreading the gospel and the word and stuff like that. It's so interesting. Religion is a very interesting thing to talk about in a podcast and get perspective on.
I think it's spiritual technology. That's what we were doing.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And like the internet, when phones first came out, web browsers, you were limited to how many web browsers, or even the applications that you use on a routine basis, you had to settle for what was available.
Exactly.
Until something else better came along.
Right.
So as in technology of, the digital world, the spiritual world, our technology's changing. Yeah. And the exposure we have to information via YouTube, Netflix, the way we stream information now broadens all of our horizons. Yeah. Even those of us who are reluctant to accept.
Yep.
The information is there, and you're the only one getting in the way.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, Mike, the one thing that makes the most sense to me.
Please.
And people can call me a tree hugger or whatever the fuck they want, but if there would be anything close to being any form of a deity or God, is this planet we live on. And things are happening. Things are changing. And I look at this planet, this beautiful earth that we live on, as a living thing, an organism. It is alive and well. And just like any living organism, like ourselves, our bodies, there's good bacteria and then there's bad bacteria, right? And you got to ask yourself, what kind of bacteria do you want to be to this planet, to this living thing? Because we all know the mechanisms of defense. When we get sick, what happens? Our body heats up, and we start to go into this mode of recovery where our blood cells are fighting off whatever virus. And that's kind of how I've been like observing this planet. Like, it's trying to fucking fight off a virus. So with climate change happening and weird patterns of weather and migration things, with animals and stuff and species deteriorating, like, shit's going down. And I think this earth is more of a should be more of a focus in the form of religion than any other ideology out there. And that's just my personal belief. We really need to focus on being better stewards to this planet that provides life to us, because it could be taken away just like that. We're very insignificant to the grand scheme of things of this place we dwell on. And it's just a shame that a lot of ideologies out there don't necessarily focus on that. It's like there's this wall that says, like, we understand that, but, like, you know, the almighty upstairs.
Sometimes
it kind of gets...
Sometimes we use our crutches for the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
I think I can't disagree with you.
Right.
I honestly can't ignore the signs
Right.
of evolution.
Right.
But we are a part of that.
Right.
We are as much a part of this earth as it is to itself. The energy that is the earth is us.
Right.
And I think that if we focus on the species, Earth naturally gets an organic benefit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then we need less to stimulate us. We need less to invest in a distraction, because we're so happy with the moment that we don't. And when we're in the moment, we want nature.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
When we go out to nature on a hike, we're so fucking, like, in tune with all the great chemicals that this planet has to offer.
Right.
Because they exist within us.
Yeah.
And they're released when the circumstances advocate for that.
For it, yep.
And I think that if more people felt healthy in their inner world, the outer world would reflect that.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
So that's,
yeah.
that's my philosophy.
Wow.
It is us. We are the planet.
Right.
We are world peace.
Right.
And I am trying my damnedest to hang on to some of these notions that I come across, whether I'm half asleep, half awake, in the closet, dumping my brain out,
Right.
In a moment with my child, in many moments with my woman.
Right.
All these things I don't shy away from. I try not to, and I try to be open with them the moment they happen.
Yeah.
Because that's where I think capitalism comes from.
Is
what's good?
Right.
What's good? And you know those people.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Those people don't even know themselves sometimes. And when you bring it to light, you're like, do you realize what kind of quality you bring into a room? And, and they're astonished. They're like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And you're like, listen, motherfucker, like that's where you go.
Right.
Go in there and give it away.
Right.
Everything else will come in. And that's what I think is that a lot of us are so in tune to what's happening outside, but how is the country of your home?
Right.
Are you living a socialist life? Are you living a liberal life? Are you living a conservative? Do you have all your shit lined up?
Right.
And until you have the perfect picture, which this is great because even if you got yourself in the perfect circumstance and everything's going great, you're too busy producing.
Oh, yeah.
To get caught up in some stupid ass argument.
Yep, absolutely.
So live it. Live that thing.
I agree. I agree.
Give it away.
It's important for us to live it and to be the example and the power of influence. It's very frustrating to know that as a species, we could end all of the struggle and the bullshit tomorrow.
Yeah.
It could be gone.
Yeah.
It's at our power to do that,
Yeah.
but we choose not to.
Yeah.
That was one of the weird realizations that I had while on mushrooms. It was just like, you mean to tell me like all the dumb shit could be gone tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like we can really get our shit together. There could be world peace. We can end all of the dumb wars. We can take care of one another. We can end starvation. We could take care of the homelessness problem that is plaguing our infrastructure and our communities. We could take care of everyone tomorrow. We can say enough, but we actively choose not to. So where do you have to ask yourself, where do you lie in between all of that stuff? What are you going to do? Are you going to be the power of influence? Are you going to drive the narrative in the right direction? Or are you just going to sit there and fucking complain about it? And it's like, this is what's going on. It's bullshit. And no one's doing anything to fix it. It's like, I get that. I understand it, and I see that too, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to hear you talk about it in the way. I was like, I choose to be positive, and I choose to bring out those good things in people, that to show them, like, this is where you belong in this situation too, even if you already acknowledge that. Like, I just want to reiterate that and talk you through it so we can make a difference together and keep this thing going. Yeah. I think that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing.
That's where it's going, though. Listen, like revel in it with me, because we're doing it in this very moment. Yeah. And all those things you question, like there's homelessness, there's all these things, and we could change it. Evolution takes time.
It does.
And society's better off than it was 50 years ago.
It is.
100 years ago.
It is.
I mean, there are people like yourself out here who have an enlightened perspective. Yeah. Because of the world you live in. And luckily for you, you're a positive being.
I try. I really... It's always... And trust me, when you're constantly being hit with shit, it's really difficult to maintain a positive...
1,000%. Because you're human. And,
exactly.
I think really the key to succeeding that are those moments where you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Maybe even experiencing some form of depression. Yeah. Is to realize that all these things you're dealing with, you asked for.
Absolutely.
You asked for them. So now's your chance. That world you scream so, loosely about, this euphoric existence that you think we're capable of, you're onto something. Yeah. Absolutely. You have to believe that it's possible in order for it to work. You have to believe in world peace. Yeah. And it's not going to happen in your lifetime. I'm sorry to tell you.
It's very unfortunate.
It's
but
not,
you're right.
But it is possible.
Yes.
Because if you carry on with this message in your heart and your actions and your entire existence, if you carry on with this mode of being, it will ripple out. It has already rippled out. Yeah. And people will reach out to you after not having seen you for 10 years. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it has happened that way. And honestly, I do it too for Austin.
Of course.
It's just a natural thing as a parent to want to produce about a better world for your next of kin, right?
Absolutely.
So, when I see him every single day, I'm like, oh my God, it whips me back into shape. When I see him going through his things and I every morning I'm listening to NPR and understanding what's going on in the world so I can prepare myself in explaining these things to him and saying, this is the direction that we're going. Right. And also being able to arm myself with the knowledge to be able to talk with people in a more positive light, and says, like, I know shit's hitting the fan, but also there's good things happening as well too. It's not all fire and brimstone, man. And I'm a patient, like I told you before, I'm an extremely patient person, so I know we're gonna start seeing the needle turn in the right direction. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
And I don't identify with myself as being patient. I think ultimately I'm impatient. I think that's the reason why I get anxiety and I get sort of bogged down by my own self-criticism. Right. It's because I'm impatient. Right. The truth is, it's a process. Growth is a process. Yeah, absolutely. And the future I seem to visualize so clearly isn't here yet because I'm not ready for it. I haven't embodied all of the cells it will take to manage that reality. Right. And because I want to do it well, it's not going to come very fast. Right. If it came too quickly, I'd squander it. And then be left to whatever the dust is. But I accept that. I accept that meme as a possibility in life. And you know what? If I can steer the ship a little bit longer, I'm gonna try and bring those things in, but do it in a way that feeds the community as well as me, because I think that's where the mistake is made in some instances, is like, I get it. Your life is abundant. Right. But now what? Right. And I think I can have both. I believe I can have world peace. Yeah. And painful growth at the same time.
Wow.
It's a bizarre concept.
It is a
isn't
bizarre
it?
concept.
It's infinite. You can't wrap your head around it.
Wow.
Because it's always going in both directions.
How often do you feel that your anxiety affects your
Every day.
patients every single day?
Every
Can
day.
you do me a favor, for those who listen to the podcast, and just exactly explain what anxiety is to you? Because people get it mixed up. People just, I get anxiety. It's like, no, you don't fucking understand.
Mm-hmm.
When some people experience anxiety, I've heard it on different levels of it's like it being a bucket of adrenaline being poured onto you, and there's nothing you can do about it. It happens at random moments of the day, or it's a moment of complete physical shutdown where I can't mentally focus, and I panic and stress and obsess about the most weird.
Yeah, I'll give you examples.
Yeah, give me an example.
My son's been going through a bullying situation.
Oh no.
And I work from 5 in the morning till sometimes 6, 7, 8 at night.
Okay.
And I'm out on the road. I'm away from home. I have family and friends who can pitch in and help. I have neighbors who've turned out to be amazing fucking community members.
Wow.
I can't express enough how blown away I am by the response of my community. But to my own credit, I put that out there.
Right.
And it showed up. The universe gave me exactly what I asked for.
That's what's up, man.
So,
that's awesome.
But in this process of dealing with this situation, there had been times where my son is on his way home. I've spoken to him on the phone. His earbuds aren't great, compatible with that ride home, so he doesn't wear them. So he calls me before he leaves school, and he calls me when he gets home. He's 10 years old, and he's getting to the house.
Okay.
It's only a couple blocks away. There was an altercation with a couple other students, some brothers and a couple others, where he bumped into them with his bike. Something was exchanged in terms of vocabulary. I don't know what was said or done or whatever. My son goes home. Then the next week, they saw my son on the last leg home, decided to chase him home on his bike, and his mother was brought into this scene somehow, and she was yelling at my son through the door, and he's locked in the house by himself. I'm at work. He's calling me, screaming and yelling on the phone. This crazy lady, and my neighbor, I later found out, had been cussed out by this woman.
Oh, wow.
And it was just this whole episode of drama. And I believe in karma. I believe whatever's coming to us, somehow we offered that energy
I agree.
up. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. I don't feel like I did anything to deserve this, so to speak. The rhetoric in my mind.
That's a natural response.
Of course. Right, absolutely. It's like, whoa. I thought we had a deal.
Right.
Mother Nature, whatever the fuck it is. I thought we had a deal. Fine. Like, I'm, okay, so I accept that initial reaction is like, woe is me.
Right.
The initial reaction is woe is me. And there had been a couple days between that and the next bullying incident where he's on his way home and I can't get a hold of him. And the phone's just ringing and ringing. I can't get a hold of him. And my mind goes ape shit.
I bet.
And the worst things I could imagine. Maybe it's because I have a creative mind. Maybe it's because I'm an actor. Maybe it's because I'm just a dad who's worried.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But that anxiety, I literally took my truck off an exit, on an exit, off an exit, on an exit.
Wow.
I made this giant circle at work because I couldn't make a decision whether to go home, which was a half an hour away. Whatever was going to happen, whether I was there or not. And or continue with work and just fucking cross my fingers that my kid has figured out how to survive the situation.
Wow.
And he'll call me. I'm like, why didn't you answer your phone? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, sorry, I was in the room petting the dog. Or whatever.
Right.
But I have no choice but to look back at the anxiety that I was living in. The moment or the inability to choose outside of what I was hyper-focused on.
Right.
And, I've related this incident to ADHD. There's other alike situations in my life where I kind of sum it up the same way. But, after talking about it and stuff, I feel like some anxiety, some depression, it's a natural effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of the world. It's a tough place to be in. And, we use our devices to cope or to remove ourselves from that moment because it seems to be so present, yet it's already happened.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I just feel like, we had talked about psychedelics earlier, and I feel like I'm just on this permanent trip.
Right.
Because I'm always able to sort of zoom out,
And
like I'm on a plane
yeah,
30,000 miles up, looking down at this little truck driver just going in circles. And thinking to myself, what the fuck was that? Like this short circuit in this human life.
It was natural survival of fight or flight. And you got worried about your son, and it sent you through a wave of emotion. I've met people who don't have control over it, and it happens when things are fine. When life is good, you're watching TV, and then boom, it hits you, and having to deal with that and just sit in it until it goes away. I've met people with that extreme form of anxiety. And I hate that people generalize the disorder as being something, everybody goes through it. It's just a thing, it's fight or flight, and I get anxiety sometimes. Like, no, you don't understand. Like, it shuts people down to where they can't function. People lose jobs, they can't hold down normal conversations. There's something going on upstairs where your brain can't distinguish what's a real fight or flight situation versus something being completely normal. Yeah. And when I started to do research on it, it was like the veil was lifted, and I was like, oh, my homie Mark suffers from that. Sorry to name drop, but or this person suffers from that, and that's what that was. And that's why they did this thing as a coping mechanism to deal with that anxiety and that depression and that overwhelming situation that happens so often. It fascinates me because, fortunately for me, I grew up, like I said, in a household that was very balanced, and it taught me how to deal, and they taught me how to express myself in ways where is healthy and to deal with my emotions when not a lot of people had that. And I'm not saying that that's the main cause and effect of anxiety and depression, but like it's definitely a contributing factor. But there's so many different resources and so many different outlets that I wish people would take advantage of, especially therapy. Like, it's such a great thing for people to talk like we're doing right now and work through it.
Well, like you said, sometimes there's a chemical imbalance. There's some chemical affect that you can't see with the human eye.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because I research and study and indulge in self-help information, personal development. I listen to all the classic gurus of these ideals, And I think that structure and discipline are a pretty important way to produce a fulfilling life.
Right.
All fulfilling life. And that's all really what I think those self-help gurus are saying is like, look, you have goals, great.
Right.
But you have to align things the way that this planet works. You have to get your shit in order for that stuff to manifest. And like, the problem is, what about the human mind that's either deteriorating or has a dysfunction of some sort, some malfunction?
Right.
What about those people?
What
about the people who need medical intervention in order to get to that next step? So I think to myself, what kind of self-help gurus are out there working with mentally dysfunctional people?
Not a lot.
And I think that I don't want to put it in terms of marketing because that just seems foolish.
Right.
But in terms of evolution and our species getting to the next level of what's possible in terms of our survival, our the way we thrive, our ability to occupy another planet.
Right.
We don't want to go there with the same fucking problems. Because I think we can help that situation.
We can.
But I think there's something to be said about people needing help and people needing other people to get that help. Right. But what a tough line to draw, because without somebody acknowledging they need help or wanting the help, it's damn near impossible.
It is. You hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of people out there that don't really understand exactly what it is they're going through. they don't see it as being anxiety. They don't see it as being depression. And that's why it's important to have conversations. Mm-hmm. And bringing those things out in a subtle way where you're not telling them, oh, you have depression. This is what you're suffering. Right. I know what you're going through. It's like, no, dude, here's an example of what a person going through anxiety goes through. This is how they feel. Yeah. Do you recognize any similarities? Right. And I've had people come to me and like, yeah, dude, when I'm in a massive crowd of people, I'm always looking for a fucking exit. I get nervous. I don't like being in situations that I can't control. And I'm like, yeah, that's a little bit anxiety. Yeah. And your brain naturally does this thing when you're in those moments and you freak out, right? And they're like, yeah. I was like, bro, it's anxiety. Yeah. So don't play it down like it's just this normal thing that everybody goes through. It a lot of people experience that, but in so many different ways. And if it's getting to a point to where you can't function in society, guess what? You need to talk to someone. Yeah. It's starting to affect your day-to-day life, right, and your goals and where you need to actually be. So you need to speak to someone that understands that there's this weird stigma, especially amongst men, where there's like, of course, I just need to keep my shit together and in my day, like my parents, in my day, you just dealt with it. And right. I had to walk 10 miles in the snow and shit like that. They give you those examples. Like, guess what? There's an effect to being withdrawn or being internalizing those feelings. Yeah. There's an effect to that. Yeah. And I want you to understand what it does to your offspring in a sense, but by you carrying yourself in that way. Like I have those conversations with my folks all the time. I was like, yo, you remember when you guys used to spank the shit out of us? There's an effect to that. Yeah. Did you realize that? They don't want to talk about that. Yeah. Well, they never want to talk about it.
Of course not. They did the best they could.
Absolutely. Though. Absolutely.
We're doing the best we can. Mm-hmm. And I think, I'll tell you a story about some of my transformation.
Sure.
I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Because it was. It truly was, but it didn't happen on my own.
Right.
The splitting up of my marriage was traumatic. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the breaking of the relationship. It was the process in which this unfolded. Right. Because there were flags all along the way.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure for both of us.
Yeah.
But be it we were trapped in our own head in the situation. We suffered consequences over and over. We were in a hole for quite some time. And then when I finally got to the edge of that hole and was trying to climb out, my father put a rope in there and pulled me up. Mm-hmm. And the way he did that was he's like, come with me to Codependence Anonymous. Okay. And sit in a room with other people who seem to make the same mistakes over and over and over.
Right.
And, mental illness is such a controversial term.
It is.
But it's normal.
It is normal.
It is such a normalcy in humanity that we just may have the wrong idea about it.
Absolutely.
And so be it. Look, if you're not ready to accept it, don't turn the page on my account. Do what's best for you.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, we all are trying to do what's best for us. From the worst of our kind to the best of our kind. Mm-hmm. We're trying to serve something within us.
Right.
And, I can't figure out all the answers to all the situations, but I do know that I was at a point in my life where I could have used an extra hand, could have used help. Yeah. And my father grabbed me and said, hey, look at this. And it changed my fucking life.
That's awesome.
It changed my life. And all it was it wasn't that I stopped being anxious. Mm-hmm. It was because I was at a point in my relationship where the phone was haunting me. My palms were sweaty. I couldn't eat. My appetite changed. My anxiety was ruling my life.
Right.
And every message had an effect. It was like another stab. And
it's terrible.
And it's PTSD after a certain point.
Yeah, it is.
And, you only know what you know. Mm-hmm. And when my father was working on himself, just happened to be around this time in his life where he was going to AA, he was going to Al-Anon, which is family members of alcoholics.
Oh, okay.
And then codependency. I really took to the Codependency Anonymous, And I was in a room full of people who also suffered the tragedy of their own decisions repeating themselves over and over. And it wasn't like they were bad people that loved to be tortured.
Right.
There were people who wanted to love and couldn't figure out how to love what they were loving.
Exactly.
And over time, I just realized the value of the human story and the dark, deep secrets that we try to keep to ourselves, and how important it is to share those things. And I'm an open fucking book, you know, and not because I want to brag about myself, but because I think it's valuable for people to know. Like, yeah, I'm putting on a podcast, but it's a fucking juggle. To get home and be a dad and obsessively think about the podcast and think about how the last podcast interview might have hurt somebody's feelings, or how it may be misinterpreted, or, you know, there's all these pressures that if I get caught up in the whirlwind of that shit, I'll never do anything.
Oh, absolutely.
And I owe it to myself to at least try.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm doing, is just fucking trying. I still suffer the same situations, but the awareness of how I react to things is what I took from those modes of help. The room full of people doing brain dumps together.
Right.
Is I took, I know I live in these cycles. I know how these cycles look on the outside. Now I see how they kind of look on the inside. I recognize this. I'm reacting to something.
Yeah.
And then it's like, whoa, back the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, hold on, you're not going to get rid of this feeling, but back up.
Right.
And I back up. My woman is, like, brilliant. My greatest friend ever.
It's amazing.
Because she'll have a moment at the same time. And we're both like, and she'll be like, you need to leave me alone.
Right.
Because I will say things and do things that I'm not going to like later on, and neither will you.
Yeah.
And I have to, it's my job to say, you're right. I'll see you later.
Yep.
And we separate without any vindictive measure between us. And we come back, and we are peaceful, and we are lovable, and we are sharing, and we connect.
That's so amazing.
And we work those things out that we thought, and some of those things, if we can't figure it out, we save it for later, we work on it later.
That's beautiful. That's crucial in a relationship, that you communicate and you consistently talk about those instances where, you know, if you're not feeling it one day, that you express that you communicate that with your partner on a regular basis. And now you guys have worked into this sort of automated process of understanding how you guys are. And when you're in those modes, you know what you need to do to make the situation a whole lot better. I feel like a lot of people need that in their relationship and should work on that.
Absolutely. Well, the same concept is applicable to business.
Oh, it is. Absolutely.
The business of our relationship is thriving.
That's awesome.
And like Google or Facebook, it's a commodity.
Right. Yeah.
And people want it.
Yeah.
And I recognize that. So, you know, it may come off as braggadocious, but only to those who strive for it.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, learn from it.
Yeah.
Take out of it what you will and make your relationship a whole lot better. I know, like I said, I've had a shining example from my folks always working through and talking through their shit.
Yeah.
And my dad, when he would get pissed at my mom, he'd go get ice cream. And he'd come and be like, hey, you want some ice cream? Your mom pissed me off. I'm like, that's cool that you do that.
Nice,
you don't throw shit or punch holes in the wall. And then you come back and you guys go to bed together like nothing happened. And then maybe you discuss it the next day, but in a calmer sense. You know, there's no bickering or fighting, and then you're not setting a bad example for the children in your household. So we had that, and it's helped me become the extremely patient person I am today.
Excellent.
With, you know, Jenny and meeting her, oh my God, she's like no one I've ever met before. She's very, she's a communicating animal. She talks through everything. And it helped me not be so withdrawn and bring out a lot of things that I internalize just naturally.
Right.
And I was like, oh shit, like I can see how this would have been a bad situation if I would have stayed quiet about this thing, but I'm glad I brought it up. And I'm glad we went down the rabbit hole of talking about our feelings and emotions, because now it helps me better gauge where she's at in certain situations. Never had that in relationships before. I was always left assuming and guessing.
Dangerous.
And that's dangerous territory, right?
Territory.
So, no, it's a beautiful thing. I'm glad to also see the smile on your face when you talk about your significant. I think that's amazing.
Oh,
Adriana
man.
is her name.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Adriana Grajeda.
Grajera, Latina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So excited. I was so excited. She was out of my league, man.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, by far. She was a woman. All I'd ever been with was girls. She was a woman. And, you know, it's so funny. I used to tease her. I'm like, when you would go to the printer, all of a sudden the wind would blow, your hair would fluff up. And it was like,
so you met her in your product of
work.
your environment. Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Okay.
I'm. You know, maybe people are sick of the story. I don't care. We met at work. I went from blue collar to white collar.
Okay.
I went from truck driver to office account manager.
Okay.
And she's the accounting manager. So interacting with her was pretty normal.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, she's 5 years older than me.
Okay.
She's got grown children. And I have this 10-year-old. And I'm this single guy trying to survive the world.
Right.
And she knows that. And I'm loud and boisterous and obnoxious. And I'm just that way.
Right.
Or have been, you know, a little more negligently in the past. And I've learned through her how to be a little more classy. And a little more precise with my energy.
Wow.
Because she just does that. She's a natural born leader.
Wow.
Yeah, just by being. And you know, she is the queen. I firmly believe that they got it all wrong. It's all about the queen. Kings were just there to
yes, you're
make it
absolutely
look
right.
big.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I met, like I told you before, I had met Jenny through Ariel. I did the photo shoot with Ariel. Jenny actually commented on one of the photos and was like, I'm a photographer too, and I love this shot. It's perfect. And then I got to browsing her profile. You know, you go down the rabbit hole of looking at other people's profiles. Sure. And, you know, at that time I was looking for people who might be interested in filming and shooting and was comfortable. And I noticed that she was very talented and very beautiful. And I was like, wow, you would just be amazing to work with. And would you be interested? And we had a session together. I don't mix romance and sex, you know, and sessions and stuff
really
like
get
that.
A choice
You don't get it. Well, that's the weird stigma with photographers. It's like, oh, you're just out there trying to take photos of beautiful women so you can hook up and stuff like that. That I was purely about the art. I've always been that
glad you
way.
cleared that up.
I'm good. I had to.
He's not a slut.
I'm not a slut. I'm not a man slut.
Okay.
There is,
Do you mind?
No. Go for it.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, I get why people would interpret it as that. Looking at the photos, there's there's women that are exposed.
I knew better,
but that's generally
there's still a possibility.
There's still a possibility, right? No, I definitely didn't go down that rabbit hole. But there was a showing. I was going to support the trash film ordeal that they had. They had Badass Monster Killer was showing or something like that. And so I had asked her. I was like, hey, you know, we vibed so well during our session. She was so interesting. She's 7 years younger than I am.
Oh, okay.
So there's this weird attraction that I had with her because it was almost as if she had an extremely old soul. She would talk about classical things, and I was like, wow, how amazing is that you're so in tune to things that have happened in the past. She wasn't like, you know, the traditional beauty that was just into what was in, and she was fascinated by history, and she loved bugs, and she was very intelligent for her age.
Yeah.
And anyway, I invited her to go see the Badass Monster Killer, and she was the first woman that was just like, I like you. What's up? There was no fucking games. There was no cat and mouse bullshit. It was just like, I think you're awesome, and I would like to get to know you better. And I was like, whoa. I was really taken back by that.
Yeah.
And it scared me at first. And then I was just like, you know what? My patience has paid off. I think I finally found something that was like mutually balanced in the rules of attraction, and I should see what this is all about. and it blossomed into something so beautiful. And
How long have you guys been together?
we've been together for about 4 years now.
Oh, that's same with us.
Yeah.
So it's 2016?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
When in 2016?
Oh my gosh. Whenever that movie premiered, do you ever remember the badass monster killer? That's when it was kind of official, because we ended up like making out somewhat in that movie theater, and I was like, this is moving fast, but this is awesome. And we went on a couple of dates after that, and then I made it official on my parents' anniversary day that we were actually together, which was January 15th. No, January 19th. She's gonna be pissed that I got that wrong. But yeah, January 19th.
Ours was November. It was
November?
when Trump made office.
Oh God.
It was funny because, culturally everybody was all into the inauguration or the presidency.
Right.
And while those fireworks were going off, my own fireworks were going off with Adriana. She hesitated, because she didn't know what my agenda was. Right. I was loud, obnoxious, and coming off slutty, and as far as she was concerned. So at first she was like, maybe I'll just use them for sex.
Oh.
and then it was like, it evolved into something neither of us thought was going to happen.
Wow.
I thought she was out of my league and this would never happen. She thought I wasn't to be trusted long term. She kind of had this weird notion of it. And, we ended up, she's my best friend, man.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
she's your forever person, huh?
She really
feel it.
is.
You
yeah.
feel it,
I tell her all the time, I'm going to marry you. I just want to marry you. I want to hurry up and marry you.
Yeah. It's the same for me too. Ginny, it's so funny. She's a professional photographer. She has a degree in it, and she does weddings nonstop. That's her business. And it's so funny to hear her talk about the whole process. She's like, I don't understand this tradition sometimes, and why people need to carry on in this way. My wedding, I want it to be simple. I love you. I just want it to be a handful of our favorite people, but I just want to revel in that moment with you, because I can't believe I found you.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's the same.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning next to you, and I'm just like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is like my forever person.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to do this thing we call existence together, and anything we battle with, we'll work through it together. We've been a stronghold. I've been everything she's ever wanted and ever needed, and it's the same thing the other way around.
Sure. You blow each other away.
We blow each other away.
Yeah. Same with us, and it took a lifetime, it feels like, to get there. But I'm in love with the fact that, my son comes from a broken home, but he's certainly surrounded by love and understanding. And the same example your parents gave you, our relationship reflects that for my son. We don't bug out at the drop of a hat because we have unresolved shit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We work through things, and if we're upset, we'll explain what's going on.
Absolutely.
And no one's left in the dark.
Absolutely. It's funny you bring up the whole broken. You would deem it as a broken home, but it seems like just from the outside looking in, Declan seems so happy.
He's pretty solid.
And he seems pretty solid. And it's the same thing with my son. Like me and his mother are extremely amicable. We have fun raising him together. Yeah. And any issues that arise, we talk about it together in an amicable sense. Yeah. And by doing things that way, he doesn't know the difference between broken and a level of togetherness. He has no clue, and he's just like, I have two parents, and I gained a parent essentially that loves me. All he's ever experienced is love and understanding, and that's really important to a child's upbringing, is that they grow up with that balance.
Absolutely, and just like we talked about what they witness versus what you tell them, right? And I know instinctively that he's watching us.
Yes.
Relate. Yeah. And his reference in the future will be just that.
Absolutely.
Like, I never saw my dad and Adriana argue, or when I saw my dad and Adriana argue, this is how it went. Yep. Maybe I can exercise those same efforts, and if the partner he is working with can't work along those lines, he knows more. He knows more in advance than his father ever knew when it was time to take the flag and run. And like you got to go through your relationships and learn what you're going to learn. don't demonize other people for
Right.
having their own experience. you
Right.
know?
And also, too, I wish people would stop condoning those types of relationships as being normal. Like, and I'll be more specific. Like, for people who so-called have a language in their relationship of, oh, we fight, but that's normal. It's like, that's not normal.
Yeah.
That's not a good relationship. If you have that, if you have those kinds of arguments on a constant basis where you're bickering and fighting and you talk shit to each other or you demean each other in a very bad way, that's not normal. That's not a healthy relationship. So stop making it seem like everybody does that.
Well, it certainly tells you where they're at
It does.
in their
It does.
process.
It does tell you where they're at in their process, but they try to make it, they try to normalize
I've
it.
been that guy.
It's
I
rough.
think it's what I'm hearing when you say this. Is like, I've said those things. I've tried to normalize them.
Yeah.
I've even ventured in to think that you're supposed to hate your wife to some degree. And it's like, no, I don't believe that. And I don't. What I didn't agree with wholeheartedly was how I felt about me
Okay.
through that process. And when I would go to work wondering, why am I still in this situation? Why do I
Right.
still feel insignificant?
Right.
This isn't right. And that's what I hang on to when I analyze the relationship I'm in now. It's like, I feel good about me.
Right.
I feel like I'm good enough to do a podcast. Whereas I might not.
Right,
And I
right.
felt like shit. You know what I mean? And like, imagine what you would do if you found somebody who would support you the way you wanted to be supported. And the capabilities you think you have, or you might have an inclination that you have, would come to fruition if you were given the space to fall in love with yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think she does that for
That's
me.
amazing.
She takes such good care of herself that the reflection of it is for me to give her the same thing out of respect.
Absolutely. It's definitely a give or take thing, and a constant level of working at the relationship. Like you have to continuously take a step back and support each other in your own growth. Like Ginny will surprise me some days. She'll come home and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go take off." I was like, "Well, where are you going?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm just giving you your space because I know I'm a little bit needy and I'm on you like 24/7, but you're a Pisces. You're very up in the clouds. You need your space. Otherwise, you're going to go crazy." And she gives it to me.
Nice.
And that's awesome. And that's beautiful for people to take a step back and
profound.
recognize it's profound. And it's beautiful. And I do the same thing. I know when she needs attention, and I need to be extra affectionate. I'm a very affectionate person.
Sure.
And she needs that to kind of help her cope with her day-to-day struggles and stuff. She's like, I just need you around sometimes so I can think clearer and progress to the next level of my own growth.
Yeah.
And you've really helped me, being the older person in this relationship, like help guide me in my youth towards the right direction. And I was like, that's beautiful. That's awesome. I'm glad I do that. I didn't know I was doing that. Naturally I kind of do my thing, but now I'm starting to take a step back and do the same thing you do, as far as like looking at what you need and being able to provide that for you, and being able to express the things that you need.
Yeah.
And not just internalizing everything, because I've just always done that my whole entire life.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
internalize fucking everything.
It's
So-
a lot. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Because you're, the whole time you're trying to understand yourself, you're trying to understand your partner.
Absolutely.
And your needs may change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's where the term "we grew apart" comes in. And it's like, well, maybe they did just grow apart.
Yeah, it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. But it's all a part of life and existing, right? It's an experience, and you learn from it. You move forward. If you do grow apart from a person or an individual, it's just that. People would always ask me, it's like, hey, do you ever still think about like your exes and stuff? I'm like, no, and I don't regret anything that's ever happened in the past. It was just an experience, and I've learned from it, and it's helped me understand what I really want.
Or what I don't want.
Oh, what I don't want.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I knowing that I have to set the example for my next of kin, is I'm always conscious of him watching,
Yeah.
and And one thing I'm glad to say that he's picked up on is the level of affection. I get it from my dad. My dad's extremely affectionate as well too. Pisces too, yeah.
Cancers are the same way.
Oh yeah.
When I'm in my shell, I just want to be held and understood, even though I'm not understandable.
What do you think about that, like astrology and?
I'm big on it personally,
Are you?
or I was, especially first starting out. Like you heard me talking to Josh about it. Like my intention was, it's changed in terms of what I think's going on.
Okay.
To some degree, or maybe they're just different perspectives, and I try to align them, and it doesn't work. But I think the human brain and evolution as it is, sometimes the mind isn't possibly able to conceptualize things that are digestible by other people. Agree. And that is, like we touched on, the chemistry of certain brains, and I don't think anybody should be, held accountable for things they didn't even know existed. Right. So I think that changes a personality. Right. But on the other side, as far as astrology, going back to the whole thing as how we're connected to the planet, I feel like the universe is just an extension of that. Yes. And however the stars may be aligned, so may be the things that make us up. Right. To represent some mode of existence in the world. Right. And, seeing as how people need each other, I need a Pisces sometimes. Yeah. I need a Cancer, a like-minded Cancer sometimes. Yeah. I need a Leo that my woman is sometimes. Yeah. And like, I recognize that these personalities all exist for a reason. Yes. And, my awareness to them is only an advantage. Absolutely. Because I can sort of be a little selective. And you can navigate. It helps you navigate. It truly does. Yes. And then when you bring out those certain aspects to individuals, they're like, yeah, I do that thing, don't I? It's like, yeah, absolutely. It's an extreme version of observation, the movement of the stars and people's reactions at certain times and certain seasons and... some things are a little too coincidental. Some things are a little scary and coincidental, but it's very bizarre on how accurate it can be sometimes. Yeah, I get lost in the sauce all the time. I'm probably a little bit too much, where I'm a little bit I'm still a kid disassociated. Inside. I think that's what it is. It's like, it's whimsical. It is. It's like there's magic. We know there's magic. Yeah. We make movies to produce said magic. Exactly. Why can't that exist in a world that makes things for us? Yeah. We are the magic. So I'm in love with it all. Honestly, I know I sit in an uncomfortable skin sometimes, but at the end of the day, when beauty comes along, I don't hesitate. That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. As long as I'm not doing circles on the freeway, I'm pretty good at capturing it. But oh my goodness, there's a book that I haven't got a chance to read yet, and it was purchased for me for my birthday, and it's about the study of the moon and its effects on the human condition. And if the moon can affect the tides, why can't it affect us? Undeniable. It makes sense, right? We're like 70% water. So how could you vilify anybody for doing anything? Right. I mean, long term. Like, I get in the moment, you're like, fucking jerk. I get that. Somebody killed your dog. Fucking jerk. You know what I mean? Like, those reactions are acceptable. But long term, to cast people aside forever doesn't make any fucking sense. Because we're vulnerable to the planet. Exactly. What the fuck do you think's gonna happen? Exactly. Yeah, it's chaos. It's funny because Jenny will get in her mode. Sometimes she's like, hold on. And she'll go outside. She's like, oh, makes sense. There's a full fucking moon. Yeah. It's affecting my emotions. I'm sorry. I'm so needy and emotional today. Likewise. I think it's getting close to lady time, too. God damn it. Makes sense. I incidentally have lady time, too. Men have it, too. We have it, too. Yeah. We have our manly times where we just want to be left the fuck alone. Yeah. We don't want to engage. We just want to be left to our vices and our thoughts, so we can move forward. I think we often separate ourselves from Mother Nature. We do, and she's in us too. She's in us all the time, and we tend to forget. We were blindsided by stimulus. Yeah. We forget all the time, and it's important to reel back in, though. Well, you're amazing. Thank you. You're amazing. Your work is amazing. Do you want to tell people where they can find your photography?
Oh my goodness. I wish I could. The best outlet for now would obviously be outlets like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. I have to admit, I haven't been active on Facebook.
There's enough work on there to intrigue anybody.
Yes, but I'm currently working on putting together a website. I realize I have a lot of art and I didn't centralize a place for it to be viewed. So I'm putting together a website. I will provide that website fairly soon here. It's in the works. I definitely want to put you on the website as well, too, to help promote the podcast because I think it's amazing what you do.
Thanks, man.
On this website, I will give you sort of an idea of what's going to be involved. It's almost done. I'm excited. But it will feature my works of films and photography and a list of all the amazing people that I've got the privilege to work with and links to their works as well, too. And so I'm excited to put you on if you would have me.
Hell yeah.
Have me do that. Just stay tuned on the Instagram outlet because there will be links posted on there as well, too, that you can see a lot of the underground stuff and a lot of the more, I would say, adult content that's not able to be posted on Instagram. That's also important as well, too. So,
if it's all right with you,
sure.
I'll do my own version of introducing your work.
Sure, absolutely.
In this episode.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's great for people to get some context of what your vision is.
Yeah.
I know we talked about Ariel and Marilyn.
Yes.
And the porn stands out in the conversation regardless, but if they saw what we were talking about, it would give great context to what your vision really is, and it is not pornography. And even if it is, it's the best kind where it's sensual and it's permission and it's acceptable.
Yes, and I'm excited to say that I'm always evolving in my art. I've been called the Vitruvian man, I guess, the jack of all trades, because I just involve myself in so many different art forms. But just for the listeners' point of reference, and to not get confused about what it is I do, I mainly just dive in the arts of photography and film and music. Those are the things I am passionate about, and that's what you would find on these outlets is a lot of my works in those different areas. And I am a musician as well too, so a lot of my music I compose myself, and I incorporate that into a lot of the photography and film as well too. Beautiful. So it's been fun. It's been really
exciting.
Fun. Yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, everyone I ever meet goes here in this book. And now I met you, and you're going in the book.
I'm just